I don't remember.
I think so, but
All right.
I mean, winter has to start for that to be a thing.
Fair enough. I believe the groundhog saw his shadow today. Shout out Bill Murray, excellent film. So for whatever it's worth, little fella saw his shadow today, so I guess that means 6 more weeks of 52 degrees and sunny here in Utah. But hello, happy Monday to you. Thank you for joining us on the program today. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's my name. Porter in the studio today, hosting the program. The Super Bowl teams have descended upon the Bay Area officially. They are in the Santa Clara area in preparation for Sunday's Super Bowl 60. Seahawks Patriots, about 4:30 Mountain Time, depending on the pregame festivities. The line continues to stay the same, which I found pretty interesting. It's estimated that $1.8 billion will be bet on this game here in America, which, of course, is an awesome sign on the future of where we're at. But Seattle remains a 4.5-point favorite, and the over-under remains at 45.5 points there as we get ready for the big game coming up on Sunday. You can watch it on NBC. You can listen to it on ESPN 700. So we'll talk some football. We have some really good NFL guests on the program today. Excited to welcome some of them in. We'll get you ready for the game and break down some of the latest NFL storylines. Appears that the final 2 coaching vacancies are off the board. We'll tell you who the Raiders are going to hire. We'll tell you who the Cardinals are going to hire. NBA trade deadline coming up on Thursday. Do not believe the Utah Jazz are going to get involved, but we'll kind of break it down today. The Jazz are off tonight. They're back in action, taking on the Pacers tomorrow in Indianapolis. Jazz have lost 6 straight. They've lost 9 of 10, and they're right on schedule to hold on to their draft pick. Can we not say that Lowry, Markkanen, and Keontae George were also all-star snubs? Stop embarrassing yourselves. This is a team that's won 15 games. They weren't getting 1, let alone 2, okay? So the All-Stars are out, and to no one's surprise that doesn't have the brainworm Jazz propaganda machine in their mind, Lowry, Markkanen, and Keontae George did not make it. But NBA trade deadline right around the corner. A lot of rumors about what could happen. We'll get to some of that stuff. Big weekend as far as the attention on the world of college basketball. Utah men's basketball with one of the worst losses of the season. This one to Oklahoma State at home. It was back and forth up until about the final 4 or 5 minutes. But if Don McHenry and Terrence Brown don't make miracles happen, this is a team that's not going to win a lot of games this year. Arizona State is the opponent coming up on Wednesday here in Salt Lake. Another game that should be winnable. Arizona State, not a good team this year. The only intriguing portion of Arizona State is will their head coach get thrown out of games when they are actually playing. So we'll talk some college hoops. Darren Peterson showed a lot of the country why he is the favorite to be the #1 pick in the NBA draft. And BYU ran into a hornet's nest at Fog Allen where they were celebrating their 1,000th game in Kansas basketball history. Fog Allen is like Augusta National if you're a golf fan, Lambeau Field if you're a football fan, Madison Square Garden if you're an NBA fan. That is the preeminent college basketball venue in the country. And another slow start and another apathetic performance from A.J. DeBonsa allows Kansas to get the win. BYU's very, very good. I don't think they're as good as I thought they would be. I'll admit that maybe I was wrong. They do not have a Quad 1 win. They're 0-4 in Quad 1 games. And at this point, they've beat up on a lot of bad teams, and they've lost to the good teams that have challenged them. So, a lot of college basketball on the show today. Jazz lost to the Raptors yesterday, but, you know. All right, guest list looks like this. Lindsey Rhodes, Sumer Sports. Good Super Bowl preview with Lindsey today. The triumphant return of my Northeast buddy, of my Staples High School legend, Tom Haberstroh, for your NBA Daily Assist on the program. Mike Morgan stops by. I've really enjoyed getting to know Mike a little bit. Then we'll move over to Ben Solak. Rising star once upon a time, was a blogger when he started coming on this show about 6 years ago, and now he's one of ESPN's main NFL voices. Lindsey Rhodes, Tom Haberstroh, Mike Morgan, Ben Solak, me, Spence Checketts. Happy Monday to all of you, the great listeners, and that young man, Porter Larson. Super Bowl week. Line has not moved. Seattle 4.5 points. What do you make of that?
I said it before, and I think it's a fair. It's kind of a really hard line to if you're trying to wager on it, because I think it's a game that's decided by a field goal or a one-score touchdown. Right? I don't really see it being a blowout either way. That being said, I think it's a fair to give the Seahawks a few points. I just think it's the better roster, better quarterback, more experience in that regard. But to have another installment of Seahawks and Patriots is interesting, because it seemed like just a year or so ago that these two teams, who had been contenders year in and year out for a decade or so, had kind of subsided, right? Well, so we thought. They're back, and it looks like neither of them are going anywhere in the near future.
So Super Bowl 60 is Super Bowl week, the final football game of the season, before we say goodbye to football until the fall. Our first guest will give us a comprehensive preview and breakdown. Always love catching up with Lindsey Rhodes on the show. But before Lindsey stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
Big game is almost here. There's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Big game max discount. This week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game live in the app right now. Drake May just needs one passing yard. Going to go out on a limb and think he'll get that for the max discount to win. So grab the free $50, put it on Drake May to go for one passing yard, then add another player to your lineup, and if your picks hit, you will cash in. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, as I referenced, the Utah men's basketball team with a really, really bad loss over the weekend here in Salt Lake. It was a home game against a team in the Big 12 that isn't necessarily upper echelon, and the majority of the teams in the Big 12 seem to be upper echelon. So when you have the opportunity to play one of the lesser teams in your building, and you're Alex Jensen and this Utah basketball program in the very early stages of a, not just a build, but an absolute total breakdown and rebuild, with basically every player leaving outside of Keanu Dawes. So it was pretty close early on, but nobody gives a rip about that. And it was pretty close up until the final stanza, as Oklahoma State pulled away for an 81-69 win. Oklahoma State with some big clutch shots down the stretch and a lot of stops. You know, when they needed the stops, they got them. The Anthony Roy kid, as we talked about last week, can really get going from the outside. He was 5 of 8 from 3, had 26 points. But they, you know, ultimately this is an Oklahoma State team that is average by every metric. And for Utah basketball, it continues to kind of be the same story. You know, with Don McHenry and Terrence Brown, two very elite and dynamic ball-in-hand individual scorers. You know, Terrence goes for 20, Don goes for 17, and Keanu had a double-double, 12 and 10, but they were 5 of 20 from 3. They lost the rebounding battle again, 43-34. Each team had 8 turnovers, nothing there. But there's not a lot of pushback defensively, and there's not a lot of rim protection. And, you know, if you're Utah basketball at this point, Arizona State rolls into town on Wednesday, and then you're at Kansas and home against Houston. So you don't get the Arizona State game. It's hard to see where these Big 12 wins are going to come. Now, when you juxtapose the investment as far as talent goes and what teams are paying for players, Utah basketball is among, if not the lowest in the Big 12. So there's a talent discrepancy, and Alex needs more financial support, and they need to figure out a way to expedite this growth with some players during the offseason. This year is not, I mean, every team goes to the Big 12 tournament, so I guess there's always a chance. Dumb and Dumber style, you're telling me there's a chance, but, you know, you got to find a way to get a couple of conference wins and certainly protect your home court. And if you can't do that against Oklahoma State over the weekend, and if you don't do that against Arizona State, it's hard to see where these wins are going to come from. Because the home games left are Houston. We got Iowa State is really good. UCF, there's an opportunity there. Colorado is mid-table at this point. But it's been tough sledding for Alex. And with the transfer portal and the one-year turnaround, if the financial investment can be there for him to get some talent, hopefully things are better next year. But the team in state that spent reportedly between $12 and $13 million on their roster is the team that plays their basketball down in Provo. Now, a couple things here, and then we'll get to Lindsey and talk some Super Bowl. Number one, I think A.J. DeBonsa is a generational talent. who is going to be a multiple-time NBA All-Star and change the course of a franchise. I want to get that out of the way. He just turned 19. Cooper Flagg's age, Ace Bailey's age. You know, people forget Cooper Flagg reclassified and should be a freshman in college this year. Instead, he's just setting NBA scoring records for a teenager as a member of the Dallas Mavericks. But AJ's still very young. At the age of 19, he's got a lot that he still needs to figure out and that he still needs to learn. In a vacuum, as a ball and hand player, isolation-wise, he can get to his spot. He can elevate and hit fadeaway jump shots. He can shoot it from three. He can guard multiple positions. He seems to play hard. He seems to make good decisions, and by all accounts, down in Provo, he's a very mature 19-year-old. He's got all the things you want, the secret sauce, because you combine the skill set, the work ethic, the maturity with simply the measurements. He's built like a modern-day NBA player. If all of it is real, he will eventually be an unbelievable pro. But over the weekend, once again, BYU had an opportunity for a quad one win. And once again, BYU fell short. BYU has had 4 opportunities to get quad one wins, and they've lost all of them. Game earlier this year in Boston against UConn, furious second-half comeback falls short. They go to Texas Tech on the road, and that's just an off night for them. That's going to happen. That's a tough place to play. They welcome in Arizona in Provo last week, and after a second-half rally, they fall short. They go to Fog Allen in Lawrence on Saturday, and after a second-half rally, they fall short. Are we noticing a theme here? The starts for Brigham Young against good teams have been atrocious, and honestly, the starts against bad teams have been pretty bad as well. Utah basketball, with their, $1 to $2 million payroll, went down to Provo against their $12 to $13 million payroll, Kevin Young and his mercenaries. And they threw punches up until about 8 minutes left, and then they ran away. This team does not start well. I don't know what that is, and I'm sure if you're Kevin Young, you're going crazy, because once they turn it on, they can hang with anybody. They've shown that. But with games like the number 1 team in the country, Arizona in Provo, or the number 14 team in the country at the mecca of college basketball, Fog Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, Kansas, you get off to a bad start. They were down 21 against Kansas. They were down 19 against Arizona. They were down 22 against UConn. So congrats on the comeback. But this is a team that spent more money on their roster outside of maybe 1 or 2 teams in the entire conference. And right now, they're probably the 6th best team in the Big 12. And this is a program and a school that boasts the most NCAA tournament appearances without a Final Four in all of college basketball. 0 Final Fours. Danny Ainge, Jimmer Fredette, we go down the list. It's never happened before. And if you're a BYU donor or booster, see, there's a difference here. Because with what Utah is trying to do with a private equity deal, they're allowing their alums to buy into the deal to get a return on their investment. What BYU is asking is just give us money. And so if you're going to do that as a BYU alum or a donor, your expectations are probably, okay, make sure that you're reflecting who we are as a BYU institution. Bernard Davis got arrested. I'm sure a lot of people weren't thrilled about that. So attendant to it, okay, win basketball games at a high level. And they're kind of doing that, but not near what any of us thought, not near what I thought. I came on air on both radio and TV and said this is a team that has a shot to make a Final Four, and today it feels like they're trending towards like either a 4 or a 5 seed and might win a game or 2 in the tournament. And if they do that, because we know AJ's gone, Richie's gone, Rob's probably gone, Gabe's probably gone. If they do that, if they get a 4 or a 5 seed and they win 1 or 2 games in the tournament after spending $13 million on talent, I just have to wonder if some people down there are going to be looking around going, wait, what happened here? We were sold a bill of goods. Because it's a new day and age. And if you're going to spend that type of money, you expect results. And so far, the results for BYU have not been near what we all thought they were going to be. We'll get back to some of this with Tom Haberstroh. I want to see who Tom thinks the best player in college hoops is this year. We'll do some NBA trade deadline. But our first guest on the other side of a break to talk some Super Bowl 60 will be Lindsey Rhodes from Sumer Sports. So keep it here on ESPN 700. I have a question for you that I think you're uniquely qualified to answer. You ready?
Maybe.
Why is beef jerky so expensive?
You know how much water it takes to
See, I
raise
knew
a
it.
cow?
I knew
How
it.
much?
Keep going.
I don't know, either alfalfa or barley or oats or whatever you supplement your feed with. A lot.
See, people complain about eggs or whatever, groceries, gas, but I am here to say beef jerky should be less expensive.
I wish it were as well. It's a staple of my diet, but yeah, it's beef is not cheap to raise.
That little bag right there, $11.99. Give me a break, man. All right, football time. Lindsay Rhodes, Sumer Sports. Lindsay, most important thing, if there was one thing you wish was less expensive, what would that be?
Oh, yeah, shoes. I don't know.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I get where we're going with beef jerky, but I don't know, man. Everything.
Okay, fair enough. It sounds like you are at a football game currently. Where do we find you?
Is it loud? I'm sorry. I'm at Radio Row.
Okay.
In San Francisco with all of my NFL media surrounding me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fun for you that you're there. What's it like? What's the energy like? Just kind of paint a picture for us.
It's a little bit quiet earlier in the week here. I'm going to take off the headset so that hopefully that sounds better.
Much better. Thank you.
There you go. Okay. It's kind of the week sort of builds up to the weekend here. Every year, Monday, Tuesday, it's going to get progressively more and more crowded in town. Thursday, Friday are going to be the big days, and they're definitely the big days on Radio Row. That's the days you see like the current athletes running around pitching products and stuff like that. So this will be a zoo, and as of right now, it's like every fourth table is inhabited, and people are talking about the game and the coaching changes and all of the different NFL topics.
Very nice. So let's kind of break this down one at a time, Lindsay. According to what I read, this is the least likely matchup for a Super Bowl in the last 50 years as it pertains to what the preseason odds told all of us. Let's do this one at a time. Mike Vrabel, how was he able to do this after the Patriots won 4 games a year ago?
I mean, that's the question of the century, right? I will admit that they snuck up on me this year. I thought that they were going to be much better. I thought that, he was going to bring some sort of stability and professionalism, certainly, like just in the sense that he has been a head coach before and kind of knows how it's done. I thought maybe they might double their win total. I did not see this coming at all. This is just absolutely wild. Also, it looks like they got the right quarterback, which is the most important thing for every team. I said it a million times this offseason. If you don't have a quarterback, then you don't really have much of anything, because it's really hard to win unless you have, at the very least, an average quarterback, a quarterback who's good enough. And so as we're finding this offseason, there are a lot of teams that feel like they don't have that and are looking for quarterbacks, and there's a dearth of them. And so I think that they just nailed the Drake May pick, whether that's, luck or whatever. But, like, he's been incredible. He was my vote for the AP All-Pro first team. I went with Drake May over Matthew Stafford. I thought Matthew Stafford was incredible, and it's like, 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. But I think what Drake May has done with this roster and the way that he's really, really elevated the Patriots with his play, certainly in conjunction with Mike Vrabel, has just been phenomenal.
Yeah, look, as you know, because you've joined us over the past year, as a Jet fan, I'm anybody but Patriots over here, but you can't help but respect. And look, I have admitted and will continue to admit, this version of the Patriots is so much more likable than the Belichick-Brady version. They just are. I mean, it's hard not to like and respect what they've done. So far, yeah. I guess ask me again after 7 Super Bowls,
Totally. Well, it's kind of, we like when things are new and when an underdog hits. And this definitely feels like that. I think it's human nature for, like as we've seen with the Chiefs, and now everybody kind of has turned on the Chiefs. And everybody hates the Chiefs because they just, are sick of the Chiefs being that team. And so, but yeah, I think that this Super Bowl is somebody asked me earlier about like a lack of excitement surrounding the game, and I don't know if that's the vibe out there. I'm very excited about the game, and from where I sit, I love the fact that there are 2 teams that we haven't talked into the ground that are in this game, and we get a chance to tell the stories of how they're built and how they do things well. I mean, the Seahawks are I mean, we talk about the Patriots going from 4 wins to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks, I remember talking to people in the preseason, and they talked about the offensive changes that they made as if those were detrimental. Like, they framed the conversation as in they lost DK Metcalf and they lost Geno Smith. And I was like, hold on. They chose to lose them, which we have to insert that into the conversation, because when people choose to move off of players, at the very least, it might not work, but you have to wonder what they have in mind. They must have a vision. They must have something that they didn't think they could do with those players that led them to make these decisions, because they were active decisions that they made to move in a different direction. And boy, they paid off.
Since we brought up the name Bill Belichick, certainly, and we asked your buddy Sam Brockhouse about this last week. I mean, look, if and again, this is a Jet fan speaking, but if Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, like, what does a first ballot Hall of Famer look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a mistake, and my guess is that the voters that voted this way, if they had a chance to read like a do-over, my guess is that they would vote differently. I think it's obviously something shouldn't have happened like this. Bill Belichick is quite clearly a first ballot Hall of Famer. He will obviously get in next year. My concern is that it will lead to a barometer against which we are judging future candidates, because that definitely comes up in the Hall of Fame. It's, well, this guy wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, so then can this guy be? And if the barometer that you're starting with is Bill Belichick wasn't, then I don't know how you vote for anyone who is a coach or an owner or a general manager, anybody who's a non-player. I don't know how you even have a conversation about that if you're going to compare that person to Bill Belichick. Like, there's no chance, and that's just not the way it should work.
Yeah, no, well said. All right, now let's move over to the Seattle side of things. So, like, unlike New England, we saw some stuff a year ago from Seattle that indicated that Mike Macdonald has long been thought of as like one of these young coaches that when he gets a shot, he has a chance to be really good. And he certainly has been that. But I'll ask you the same question about Seattle that I did about New England. How'd they do this? How'd they get here?
I think Seattle is just a really, really interesting team because, I mean, clearly the defense was strong last year. We knew it was going to be strong with Mike Macdonald. It is, they've been dominant. The offense is the part of the ball that really, I think, is fascinating because of the things that I said in terms of the specific choices they made this offseason to go in a different direction and to move on from somebody like a DK Metcalf and to put JSN in a position where he's the target leader, and to go with a lot of multiple tight end sets and then to run the ball a ton. It's kind of anti-analytics in the sense that, typically you want to have a higher pass rate over expected than they do for like near the bottom of the league in terms of passing in situations where you would expect them to pass. But I think that they've been so interesting in that they run the ball a ton, not particularly efficiently. They've gotten much better as the season's gone on in the postseason, but on the year they're 29th in the league in EPA per rush. They run a lot, and so they get those counting numbers up, like in terms of rushing yards per game, but they're not particularly good at running the ball, or they weren't for a good majority of the season, but they did it so much anyway and put a couple of tight ends on the field in order to get the defense to like bait them into the look that they wanted them in so that they could pass efficiently. And then they didn't pass the ball that frequently, but they clearly picked their moment with a lot of play action where Sam Darnold's like, okay, this is the look, and now we're throwing the ball against this particular defensive look. And then they did so efficiently. They were 8th in the NFL in EPA per pass. And so I just think that they're a fascinating story of understanding maybe their strengths and their weaknesses, coming up with specific game plans and schemes that fit those strengths and weaknesses, and put them in a position to just be very, very hyper efficient. I think efficient is the word choice that you want to be in the NFL these days. Not so much about volume, it's about maximizing the chances that you get. And so I think that they're a fascinating use case to study.
So we all love a good redemption story, and we exist out here in Salt Lake where once upon a time we were in the Pac-12 footprint. We are now in the Big 12 footprint, but when Utah was in the Pac-12, had multiple opportunities to watch Sam Darnold play quarterback, and he is, Lindsay, the only quarterback my horribly misguided football team has drafted over the past like 15 years that I thought like, okay, we've got something here. It's hard to blame Sam because the Jets are, the place where quarterbacks go to die. But his reclamation story, his career arc that now has culminated with the stat that still blows my mind. The first quarterback in USC history to start in a Super Bowl, and his name is Sam Darnold. What stands out most to you?
What stands out most to me is how he got here. Like, I think it's a fascinating story, and I'm going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm not. I am plugging a thought process that I think is very important. People wanted to throw him away. And the number of times that I had conversations over the years, it got embarrassing for me, where people were like, I was like, yeah, I think this might be the year that we see what Sam can do. And then they would laugh because he had been a bust, in quotes, to that point. And then sometimes we didn't see it that year. And then at the end of the year, I'd have to look at it, go, okay, but, and I hate to do this again, the reason we didn't see it is because the coaching was atrocious, right? Like, there were some really bad decisions made down in Carolina when he was there. Or, in New York, you're like, who was around him? There were always reasons. And I think that they're explanations, not excuses. And he wasn't making them. Other people on the outside, like me, were making them for him. I just thought he was a clear and obvious person who had not proven to us that he could not play. All we really knew prior to him going to Minnesota was that he maybe wasn't the talent level like a Patrick Mahomes where he could lift all ties. And so maybe we'd established that. But we hadn't seen if he was good enough, if the environment was good also. And so what we saw from him in Minnesota was that the answer to that is yes. And then we saw from him in Seattle this year that the answer to that is yes. We also learned how valuable it can be for a quarterback who does have some starting experience to take a step back and be a backup in a room where it's not all on him, but he does have enough experience to listen to the meetings differently through a different prism and get a chance to really learn and watch somebody else get coached and watch how somebody else is doing it. And I think that time in San Francisco was so valuable to him. And it makes Malik Willis an interesting free agent quarterback for me this offseason because he has not gone through as many roller coaster ups and downs as Sam Darnold's career has, but he has been a starting quarterback. He has had it not work out, and then he has had the opportunity to sit in the back of the room behind a different quarterback in a healthy organization and listen to them have the conversations that they're having. I talked to Jordan Palmer earlier in the season. He's a quarterback guru coach, and he happens to work with Sam Darnold. And it's like when the room is on fire, you don't get to talk about next level things. You just got to fix the problem, right? Like, find a way to fix the problem. When there aren't as many problems, you get to really get into the nitty-gritty about why you're doing certain things against different coverages and what you're looking for. And I think that Sam has benefited from that. I'm interested to see if Malik has as well.
So it's not often I would ask you a question about just one individual player because football is the ultimate team sport. But once upon a time, Utah football played in a Rose Bowl against Ohio State. They had a wide receiver named Jackson Smith and Jigba.
God.
And I mean, look, Lindsay, and we're Puka Nacua fans because he played his high school and college ball here in state. But watching his evolution, and look, I know Christian Gonzalez is awesome, right? I don't know that it's enough to just stick any cornerback on JSN at this point. What does New England do to try to keep him in check?
Well, that's the answer to what will I be watching for in the game. Like, that's the number one storyline that I will be watching for because I'm not sure that even if you, like, double him or, I mean, you could give him so many different types of attention. He finds a way to break out of it. Sean Syed, my colleague at Sumer Sports, did a really great video breakdown that's up on Twitter at Sumer Sports, SUMER, about Jackson Smith and Jigba in the NFC Championship game. And he shows, okay, here they tried to play him off. Look what he did. Okay, here they tried to press him. Look what he did. Okay, here they put him in a box. And look what he did. Like, and the types of things that he's doing to the defenders and the way that Sean kind of shows, like, the tough spot that the defenders are in each situation. He is so talented. I don't think that anybody knew prior to this season just how talented he is. He and Puka had like 99.9 percentile seasons, and both of them, by the way, are just wildly talented, and it's an either or for me for Offensive Player of the Year. But they are having, like, we measure all wide receivers since 2016 in the seasons that they've had with our Sumer Score metric, which gauges every frame of every play of every season. and they are literally like two of the best wide receiver seasons that we've seen since 2016. It's what he's doing is so wild, and we should appreciate it. And it is the challenge of the Super Bowl for Vrabel, is to try and find a way to take him out of the game. And they always got Kyle Belichick takes away your best player, makes you beat them with someone else. I just am not sure if they even can. But even if they can, I actually do have faith in Sam Darnold having the veteran poise, and this is where his experience comes in, and the mental part of the game having been developed to the degree that it is. I think he will find where the hole is, because if you put two on Jackson, now there's someone else who will be able to have some faith. And I think that what you just asked is literally the one thing that I'll be watching for more than anything else.
Sam joined us last week, hit us with some of those numbers. I followed up with this question for him. I'm going to follow it up with you. Better football player, not wide receiver, better football player, Jackson Smith and Jigba or Puka Nacua?
I mean, it's like Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how you do that. I might go with Puka at this point just because we have a greater sample size. And, I mean, he's so wildly talented and athletic. But again, it's like, I mean, I don't know. I think we're going to see from both of these guys for years to come. And I also think it's very fun that for the last few years it's been Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and like there's a handful of names that have always been at the top, and then you've had like a Puka, certainly not JSN prior to this season, but they're in like a tier 2 or 1B, and I think it's fun to watch these two guys that are different styles of wide receivers. We're also at an inflection point right now where you're seeing like slot receivers become number one guys. Like you've got a Monra who certainly can play everywhere, and these guys too, but they go in and out of the slot. We're watching wide receivers evolve right before our eyes. That you do not have to be a prototypical, big-bodied guy who plays along the sideline all the time. That's not your wide receiver one anymore. It doesn't have to be. And I think that that's so fun. It opens up so much in terms of offenses, the variety, the versatility, and they both have that.
All right, before I say you loose, I have two more questions for you. Instead of asking you for your pick, Lindsay, I'm going to ask the question like this, okay? Question number one, New England wins Super Bowl 60 if what?
Okay, if they force Sam Darnold into a few mistakes. Now, and I want to be really clear because I know that there is a narrative out there that's like waiting for the carriage to turn into a pumpkin. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about time running out and him becoming the guy who saw ghosts several years ago. I'm talking about the same way that good defensive play can bait a quarterback into a mistake, any quarterback. And so I think that has to happen in this game for New England to have a chance. I think that Seattle is going to find ways to get pressure without blitzing on Drake May. And I think that if there is a weakness in this man's game, who I voted for as my AP, QB1, it's sack avoidance. He has yet to find a way necessarily to escape that pressure, evade it, leave the pocket, and still keep his eyes up looking downfield. And so if he doesn't find a way to do that, which he's struggled with so far in the postseason, I think that it could be a long night for him.
And on the other side, Seattle pulls this off if what?
If New England does not find a way to stop Jackson Smith and Jigba or force Sam Darnold into mistakes, I think that I just see more paths for Seattle to win this game. I think their defense is dominant. New England has made it through the postseason so far, getting through several defenses that are dominant also. I mean, think of the murderer's row that they've gone through from a defensive standpoint. It's wild. Houston, Denver, the Chargers are not in that conversation, but that's tough too. But Houston, Denver, and then Seattle, that's wild. Those are arguably the three best defenses in the NFL this season. And they've made it past the other two. I just think that the other two teams had clear deficiencies in those games at important positions, and I don't see those with Seattle. So I do like Seattle. I think they have more paths to win. But, like we said earlier, if Vrabel can come up with a defensive plan that confuses Sam Darnold or forces some mistakes out of him, then I think that that's their path to win.
Sounds like you're leaning Seattle. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, like you, I'm very excited for it because it's the last football game we get to watch for about 4, 5, 6 months. So.
Oh, that's such a sad way to frame it.
I know. But look, it's a year-round sport to cover, regardless if there are games. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we go right into draft season. We have a brand new TV show that we're launching at Super Sports called The Evaluation. It starts the Thursday after the Super Bowl. So if you are having any kind of like end of season sadness, just shift gears to the draft season with us. We've got tons of scouts who have been trained to keep all their secrets close to their vest. Mike Mayock. We've got former general managers just like him, Mike McCagnon, Phil Emery, a bunch of former scouts and personnel guys that are going to be sharing their evaluations of this year's crop and comparing that to the data that we have at Sumer about those players, and then having roundtable conversations, much like you have in front offices, about how you should evaluate different players at different positions and how you should prioritize the conversations that you're having in terms of when to draft them.
And where can everybody go find that work, Lindsay?
The show will be on YouTube. Just go to sumersports.com and you'll find links to all of our stuff. Sumer Live, which is the live dashboard that you can follow along the game for free on Sunday at the Super Bowl, getting advanced stats. It has a link to the evaluation, all of our different data points. If you're interested in finding out how your team stacks up against any other, all of this is free, not behind a paywall. Sumersports.com, SUMER.
Lindsay, thanks so much for the time. Enjoy Radio Row and enjoy the Bay Area, and we'll get you back on soon, okay?
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate talking to you as always. Thanks for having me.
All right. Lindsay Rhodes, Sumer Sports, at Lindsay_Rhodes is where you find her. She is on Radio Row in Santa Clara. The side of Super Bowl 60 coming up this Sunday with the Seahawks and the Patriots doing battle. Both quarterbacks, by the way, continue to be limited in practice. Darnold's dealing with his oblique. Drake May's dealing with a shoulder injury and a little bit of an illness, but the line remains the same. Seattle is a 4.5-point favorite to beat New England in Super Bowl 60. I think Sam also likes Seattle, and Lindsay likes Seattle as well. Porter, are you busy on February the 11th? Do you have any plans February the 11th?
I don't know.
Because I have an idea.
I live in the moment, Spencer.
I know you do. That's what I like about you, but I have an idea. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Utah football just sent out walk-on tryouts February 11th. I'm thinking slot receiver. We just throw you out there. I mean, look, at this point, I feel like anybody could try out for Utah football. You just have to be able to get into the U. You can do that, right?
I do have a little eligibility left. I saw Kyle Witt has some open tryouts as well, so maybe you have to double duty.
Oh, by the way, I talked to a high school football coach over the weekend. I was texting with him about some stuff. I'll tell you who it is during the break. He said Witt was out here with Jason and Jason Beck and Jay Hill, and they're just offering all the best Utah high school players.
Why not?
Which, of course, is the name of the game. But I think one of the lifebloods of Utah BYU football, and look, it's not like the secret hasn't been out. You know, when I was at the U or when I was in high school, the graduating classes, if there were more than 4 or 5 like D1 football players, it was an anomaly. I mean, truly, like, and all of them went to Utah and BYU. Occasionally you would get an out-of-state offer, but that didn't happen very much. And now every single year, I would say for what? You have a better pulse on this. For the past 10, 15 years, there are probably 20, 25 D1 athletes.
Yeah, the trend started, I shouldn't say started, but really started to accelerate in about 2004, 2005, where you really started to see a lot of NFL players come out of Utah. And I've shared the maps with you, the data on it, of player origins in the NFL, right? If you get outside of SEC country, the #1 per capita producer of NFL players, both at the college and the high school level, it's Utah. California is right there as well as far as the numbers go, but it's Utah. They outpace Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado combined. They outpace all the states around them. So there's a football factory going on in Utah, and I don't think it's stopping anytime soon. And yeah, with Kyle, he's got more open scholarships than he may usually have, being in his first year at Michigan, and he knows where his bread is buttered, at least. So I don't have any surprises there.
Yep, no doubt about that. All right, we will catch a break. We'll get back to football coming up because we got Ben Solak joining us. But coming up on the other side, we'll do a little hoop, we'll do a little jazz, we'll do a little NBA trade deadline. It's the triumphant return of Tom Haberstroh to The Drive right here on ESPN 700. All right, Super Bowl 60 coming up on Sunday. Mike Morgan will join us, and we also have Ben Solak later on from ESPN. So we're back to football in a little bit. Jazz are off tonight. Back in action against Indiana tomorrow. The NBA trade deadline is right around the corner. And when I got my rundown today, a big smile came across my face because I thought our next guest had decided that he was no longer friends with me, which would have hurt my feelings. It's my Northeast brother from another mother, Tom Haberstroh. My goodness, Tommy, where you been, dude?
It's good to be back. I had a crazy winter and fall trying to move into my house. We did some renovations, and I just totally blocked off everyone. You, all my North Carolina friends. I've been living under a rock for a few months, so now I'm back, baby.
Well, it's great to have you back. Are you still living in the Charlotte area?
Yes, we just had to move out of our house to do some stuff on the house, and moved into an apartment with 2 kids, which was great. And now we're back, and I got a slumber party. My 9-year-old is having a slumber party for the first time. And Spence, I'm telling you, man, I am not ready for this.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I mean, look, I have one child. He is now 24. So I used to really cringe when my friends would give me parenting advice and they weren't parents. So I'm not qualified to give you parenting advice with multiple children because I know that's a game changer, yeah?
Yeah, in the middle of a snowstorm. So here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we got 11 inches of snow, and so I'm digging myself out of this like a real Connecticuteer. I know what I'm doing, my way around a snowstorm, but this is all very much. And then we got the trade deadline, got the Blazers tomorrow night with an 11 o'clock tip-off, and things are happening, Spence, around the Haberstroh household.
And you know what's wild is it's 56 degrees and sunny, and Salt Lake City has not had one major snowstorm all year, Tom. I have no idea what's going on.
So what does that mean? Does that mean you like this weather, or you actually wish you had some snow so you can go skiing and enjoy the winter wonderland?
22-year-old Spence would be angry because he's not skiing 50 times a year. Spence in his mid to late 40s is fine with it because he went golfing over the weekend twice.
Such a true statement. Golf over everything at this point in your life, right?
For sure. Hey, since you're in Charlotte, are they awesome? What is going on with the Charlotte Hornets?
Yeah, man. I went to the game the other night where they put up like 140 points on the Sixers, and they were up by 50 at one point in the middle of the game. And I think all of us here in Charlotte are a little just confused. I mean, the Panthers made the playoffs. They did as well as anybody did against the Rams, and then here we are with the Charlotte Hornets having the best point differential in any month in the last 20 years. So it's a real confusing time to be a Charlotte sports fan. But the Hornets, they've got a lot of great offensive pieces. They just have never been healthy, and it offers some hope for the Jazz where just at any point things can click, and then suddenly you're looking at a team that is just going roughshod over the rest of the league. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs couldn't do anything against the Hornets the other day, and it's just it's really exciting to see Charles Lee, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Con Knipple is a real revelation, and he's a local guy in terms of he went to Duke, and so there's just a lot of good vibes in Charlotte.
Does it feel like they're a potential playoff team? And I cannot believe I'm asking you that question about the Charlotte Hornets, but do you think they have a shot to actually make the playoffs?
Well, yeah, because this play-in scenario kind of changed the game where, this team, if they make the play-in, I don't think anyone wants to play the Hornets in the first round with the way they're playing. And so, yeah, definitely that they can make the playoffs. And the thing about it is, under LaMelo Ball, the first 2 years of the LaMelo Ball experience, they went into the play-in and just got beat up, just got crushed, smoked in the play-in 2 years in a row. And that was the end of the James Borrego era, unfairly, I would add. And then now with Charles Lee back and Con Knipple and Moussa Diabate, he's been amazing. This team right now is on the outside looking in on the play-in, but they're just a game and a half back of Atlanta, and they're a handful of games away from getting that 7th seed. So with the way that they're playing over the last month, the Charlotte Hornets are very much a team you don't want to face in the play-in, and a team I would argue that Detroit or New York or Boston, they don't want to play in the first round because they're feisty, man.
So you referenced the Jazz, and look, it's the 4th year of covering them the same way, and we've had your buddy Tim McMahon on pretty consistently and all the other NBA guests, and it's nice that this is our first chance to talk to you this year only for this reason. You're always good to give us some perspective and numbers about what is real and what isn't. And the main storyline, and honestly, it's been a little bit of a relief is how I would put it, because we entered the season knowing Lowry is awesome. Walker gets hurt early, unfortunately. I do want to get to Walker in a moment. But, this season we're kind of like, okay, are any of these young players going to grow and kind of pop a little bit? And Keontae has. So it's been a little bit of a relief. Look, obviously the individual scoring stuff appears to be real, but it's also almost 7 assists, 4 boards. The efficiency has been better. We'll get to the defense because for the 4th straight year, they're trending to be not just bad defensively, but the worst team defensively and maybe historically bad. But in a vacuum, Tom, what stands out most about Keontae George so far?
Well, I think we talked about it at length because with the Blazers, when I do the broadcast and Scoot Henderson would go through this rough patch, I'd have to remind myself that he's 19 years old. And any point guard that is, and including LaMelo Ball, by the way, any point guard that starts in the league as a teenager is going to have a very steep learning curve because you're dealing with men. You're dealing with full-grown guys who know how to bully you, know how to take away your best stuff, and if you don't have a counter to the counter, you're going to be, drowning in the deep end. And for Keontae George, when he came into the league, we just thought, man, it just doesn't seem like he's able to shoot with any sort of efficiency. He can get these on these streaky runs where he looks at like he's a real NBA point guard prospect, and then he just goes through a rut where it's just I don't know if he has the package around the basket, in the mid range. The 3-point shot I feel like was up and down, but now he's got this package around the basket where he's now shooting 52% on his 2-pointers, which for a point guard at his age, and the way that he's getting into the paint and getting to the free throw line, it's like, wait, he just really unlocked something. I mean, the fact that this guy is that good of a free throw shooter and figured out I can get to the line 8, 9 times, 10 times a night, there is real Shai Gilgeous-Alexander potential here because guys normally do not figure that out, how to get calls at that size, at that frame, at will at this age. You get this at 25, 26 years old in the league, but Keontae just turned 22, and he's routinely getting to the line almost 10 times a night, 7 times per game, 89% shooting, and that has really unlocked everything for him, is his ability to get in the paint and draw fouls. And so how is he doing this? Where he's one of the most improved players in the league, and I think he has a very good case alongside the guy that I'm covering, Deni Avdija. Both of them have kind of the same story, is that it took a while for the confidence to build, and this is what Deni Avdija talks about all the time, is the belief in yourself. Like, people are trying to believe, infuse confidence in you, but at some point, you just have to believe in yourself that you can go and do this at an NBA level, at an all-NBA level. And when you look at it, Keontae George has 13 games this season with 25, 5, and 5. That's top 10 in the league. I mean, it's more than James Harden, more than Jaylen Brown, more than Julius Randle, Tyrese Maxey. And when you're talking about a young guy at 22, there's no one on this list of guys who are putting up those numbers consistently that are as young as Keontae George. So what has changed? It's the ability to play through contact, get downhill, and get those foul calls that are well beyond his years. You look at the guys ahead of him in those categories of 25, 5, and 5, and it's all MVP candidates and all NBA candidates. And he and Deni Avdija are right at the top of the list of most improved players.
A lot of people in our market make a living in the media space as a result of a partnership with the Jazz. So I will ask you this question only because it's been a narrative, but know that I am rolling my eyes and almost laughing as I ask it. Keontae and Lauri Markkanen were not all-star snubs. This team has won 15 games. Neither of them were going to make it, and certainly there's no way both of them were going to make it. I mean, who gives a rip about this game anymore anyway, Tom? But for the people in our market that dare to say things like that out loud, you say what?
I say one of them had a really strong case, but when you have a record like they do, it's going to be really hard. But I don't blame the fans who really wanted to see their guys in the All-Star game. And I was even sweating it for Deni Avdija, and the Blazers have won 23 games. Utah's won 15. And I was even nervous about Denny Avia's chances of making it. But as they were hovering around 500, I thought, okay, he's got a really good shot at making this thing. But record does matter, and it stinks that the rest of the roster is very much green, not like very raw talent. The defense isn't there, where I think offensively Keontae and Larry Markkinen are two of the best offensive talent duos in the league. They're really good at getting efficient looks and finishing at a high level. But when we're talking about the defense, it's just really drawing this team back. And I think if you're going to point to any reason why this team did not get at least one all-star representative, it's because they are, right now, the least efficient defense in the NBA, giving up around 125 points every 100 possessions, which has never been done before. And yes, it is a new kind of inflated scoring era where 125 isn't as terrible as it sounds compared to like 5 years ago. But I would just say that it's a great thing. I know it's hard to have perspective on this, but it's a great thing to have two players that you're kind of feeling got snubbed on the All-Star game, because that means you're trending in the right direction.
So let me follow up with some marketing stuff before we get to the defensive issues. And I mean, look, he's awesome. He really is an excellent player. And, you know, he was at Arizona and, of course, Pac-12 footprint with Utah. So seeing him in school, you thought he had something, and there were flashes and moments early on with Chicago and Cleveland. But whether it's Will Hardy's system or Lowry just growing and improving, like every time the Jazz actually allow him to play, it just reaffirmed that he's such a good player. And he's 28 now. And the way I see it, I'm looking at the roster construction, and I've been on record saying they should have traded him when he was an all-star, you know, the first time 3 years ago. I understand why you want a really good player on your team. It's not that hard. But if you do the calculation, you know, unless, and we'll get to Ace in a moment as well, unless something happens with Ace where suddenly figures it out and he's on the level of Lowry and Keontae and a healthy Walker Kessler, there's just no way this team is competitive at the highest levels on the landscape of the West until Lowry is probably 33, 34. So I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they probably should. And the Giannis thing gets a little interesting because a lot of conversation right now is about Golden State maybe wanting to pair Giannis with Steph. But if they have a package to offer Milwaukee that doesn't end up working out to grab Giannis, I just wonder if they call Danny Ainge and say, look, we're looking to salvage the final portion of Stephen Curry's career, what would it take to get marketed? If I'm if I'm Dunleavy, I'm making that call. What do you think about that scenario? Anything that's valid there?
Totally valid. And in fact, in my titles here is that I just published this morning, I put one trade target for every contender and 15 contenders, and we can argue about like 10 through 15. Are they really title contenders? I put them on there because I think they're one move away or a couple moves away from really contending. And we've seen, you know, with the Indiana Pacers getting to the finals last year, a lot of teams in the East are like those side view mirrors where it's like the objects appear closer or seem closer than they appear, where a lot of teams in the East are looking at themselves and saying, we're like a couple moves away at the trade deadline from being this year's Indiana Pacers. And I put Larry Markkinen as a guy that will be a amazing consolation prize. Like you laid out with the Golden State Warriors, is that they're not able to go get Giannis, and Milwaukee says, look, you don't have the pieces. I think there are going to be teams like the Golden State Warriors, like the team that I think should go after Larry Markkinen is the Miami Heat, and say, hey, we're big game hunting, and we want a guy that can win right now and try to make it in the Eastern Conference and break through the Eastern Conference. And if they don't get Giannis, those teams, I think you're going to see Michael Porter Jr. and Larry Markkinen's team get a ton of phone calls. Because right now, their ownerships are all hearing about Giannis. And if they lose out on the Giannis sweepstakes, I can imagine that Austin Ainge and Danny Ainge are going to have a lot of fun on those calls because they're going to be in a position of leverage where they don't have to move Larry Markkinen, but they know that he's under contract for 3 more years after this one at about $50 million. And at that point, are you going to be ready to compete compete in the next 3 years? And I would say no. At this point, there isn't really a viable path to being a title contender in 3 years for the Utah Jazz, just where they are right now. They could be a playoff team, but I think it's a little rich to think that they would be a title contender. And at that point, I think you look at this and say, this is an amazing draft class. How many times can I get into that lottery to make sure that I end up with at least one franchise cornerstone? And I think the Miami Heat, I think the Golden State Warriors, I think they would have an ability to package some picks here where you can say, all right, I'm going to be able to add to my inventory of draft picks and then maybe potentially bundle those picks in order to move up in the draft. If I'm outside the top 5, I can move into the top 5, adding some picks from other deals. Lauri Markkanen becomes very interesting for Miami. It becomes very interesting for Golden State because I think their ownership are going to be very aggressive with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and not everyone can get him. So there's going to be some front offices that are going to have to pivot to guys like Lauri Markkanen. I think Utah would be wise to assess the market right now with him playing well, him being healthy, and just saying, you know what, we have a guy in Keontae, we just got Ace Bailey, let's figure this out in ways that we can rebuild and maybe get some defensive help for this team so that it isn't going to be if Keontae George is now averaging 30 points a game and we're just not able to get him in the All-Star game because we got nobody who can stop be more than a traffic cone out there. So I would absolutely see what the haul would be for Lauri Markkanen, and I think they might be as motivated as any time to sell high on Lauri Markkanen because Giannis is going to be only going to one team this summer or right now, and there are going to be a lot of teams disappointed and might be a little emotional putting in extra picks into a deal.
Yeah, let's stay in this space for a moment. It's interesting to consider what the Jazz could receive if they decided to put Markkanen on the table. And I know a lot of fans would be upset because Lauri, A, has been awesome, and he's been like a model citizen. And you know the deal around here. We want you to tell us that you like us, please, because we've had so many players leave Utah. Lauri's bought a house here. He lives here. He seems to love it. But Danny Ainge would trade his wife for a better draft pick. Like, he reminded everybody when he took the job, and I love the line he used. I use it all the time. He said, everyone here needs to know that I take emotion out of decision-making when it comes to roster construction. And then he trades Mitchell, he trades Gobert, he traded everybody. So for the right offer, I still believe Danny and Austin would do the deal if it was right for the organization. What is that right offer? I mean, I've got a couple of Giannis scenarios up in front of me. One of them actually includes the Trailblazers in a 3-teamer. But if we look at the Golden State offer, they've got a 2026 first-round pick, a 2028, a 2030, 31 pick swap, 30. I mean, they've got 5 or 6 draft picks they could put on the table, and there will be a post-Stephen Curry world that could indicate some of those assets are valuable down the road. But generally speaking, for our Jazz fan listeners, if Lauri Markkanen is traded, what type of package do you think would make Austin and Danny at least listen and maybe say yes?
If you put 3 first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen, I think it's a done deal. 2, I think they would get on the phone and say, all right, now we're talking. 2 and a young player. If you're going to go after Giannis Antetokounmpo, if you're the Miami Heat, you're going to put in Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and 2 first-round picks. Is that going to get it done? I don't think so. But for Lauri Markkanen, I think that would do it. I think if you had Jaime Jaquez, Khalil Ware, and then for the Miami Heat, it's a 2030 and a 2032 because their picks are right now tied up in the Terry Rozier fiasco. You would have the opportunity, if you're the front office for Utah, to get 2 young players and 2 first-round picks for Lauri Markkanen. But if you're Golden State and you're like, look, I can trade you the 2026 this year, which would right now be the 17th pick in the draft, and Utah right now has the number 6 best odds on the number 1 pick. So if you're a team that has the number 17 and has a chance to move up by packaging that 17 with, let's just say, the 6th or the 7th pick, things get really interesting. And it seems like a top 5 draft this year, or a really top 5 prospect where there's just a shelf and then it cascades after that. Utah, it's just tough. I mean, they can obviously move up. They have a 37% chance of getting into the top 4. But if you have a couple swings in this year's draft, that could be really advantageous. So if you're Utah and the Golden State Warriors can't get Giannis, but they put in 2 picks, maybe one this year and one down the road, and you throw in Brandon Podziemski on Jimmy Butler's contract as the centerpiece, I think that's the framework of, as our guy Brian Windhurst would say, we're in the deal zone. I think if you get 2 first-round picks and a young player from Golden State or Miami, I think that's when, even for Danny Ainge and Pat Riley to come to an agreement on a deal, I think it would take a couple first-round picks, and if there's 3 involved, I think it's a done deal. That's my opinion with Larry Markkinen.
Well, and the reason I feel like that makes sense, even though I personally would be bummed just not to be able to watch Markkinen, because I watch this team every night, and it's so frustrating in so many different ways. And then Lowry starts doing Lowry things. You're like, all right, well, at least that's fun to watch. Here's the deal. I mean, Ace is 19. I want to ask you about Ace. And then when you look at the ages of some of these other players that I think are part of the future, Keontae's 22. I think there's some stuff to like about Walter Clayton Jr. The other young players, the Taylor Hendricks of the world, the Bryce Sensabaughs, even though Sensabaugh's a really elite shot maker, the Cody Williams, I don't know if they're part of this group moving forward when the Jazz are actually good again. But I do think Keontae's growth is real, as we outlined, and there are moments, Tom, with Ace that I am just blown away. At the age of 19, all of 6'9", 6'10", great wingspan. The shot profile is much better than I thought it would be. He's had some injury issues, I'm using air quotes, but when they let him play and play big stretches, I'm as excited about Ace Bailey as I've been about any young Jazz prospect since Donovan was here. Now, 19, long way to go. The highest draft pick to not make the Rising Stars Challenge, which is more of a testament to how awesome this class has been. But the early returns, in your mind, Ace Bailey, what does that look and sound like?
Oh, it's really good. I think if you're a Jazz fan, you have to be really happy with what you've seen. Is it ecstatic? Like, oh, we got a LeBron, we've got a Wemby on our hands? No, I don't think we're in that territory, but I think it's a future all-star potential is there. You look at him and his ability at 19 years old to score with efficiency. The knock on him was that he had a really inefficient shot profile. And yes, sometimes you can fall in love with the mid-range. But the way that he shoots the 3 ball, you can tell that this guy is going to be an elite scorer in the NBA. He's got the frame. He's got the shooting ability. He's not yet figured out the Keontae George how to use his body to get free throws, but no real 19-year-old has figured that out. Cooper Flagg, even as good as he is, he's not able to get to the free throw line at will, even with his frame and athleticism and his strength. So Ace, look, man, when you're 6'8", 6'9", and you can shoot it as well as he has and handle it as well as he has, you put on some weight and you grow up a little bit, he has a real potential to be an all-star wing in this league, and even more than that. So I'm excited for Utah fans to have a guy like this that they can watch and grow with, because I think the talent is there, and under Will Hardy's system, I think he's going to have the right habits and have the right support system around him. That right now he's probably a little too 3-point heavy, but I'd rather that than just pulling up in the mid-range all the time. But he's good, man. I'm excited for him, and I think the fans, he's someone that in like 3 or 4 years, just like with Keontae, you have to wait before you start to see what he can really become. But so far, I think it's the right pick. I think Utah was right to take that big swing on Ace, and everything so far suggests to me that they made the right deal. And I think it could go a lot worse than what we're seeing right now.
Let me ask you about Walker. You know, unfortunately, he was off to an awesome start to the year, and then the shoulder. He only played 5 games, and then shoulder surgery, out for the season. He is a restricted free agent at the end of this year. So for Jazz fans, this is very much like when Gordon Hayward was restricted and Dennis Lindsey said, go bet on yourself, and he did, and got a max offer sheet from Charlotte that was then matched by Utah, so he stayed until, he didn't. There are some reports, including Tim McMahon on this show. I'm not going to be as strong as to say like there's a fracture or anything like that, but Tim's reporting indicates there's a disagreement between Walker's camp and the Jazz about what his value is on the open market. Bottom line is this: whatever he goes and gets, the Jazz can match, and I would imagine they don't want to lose him for nothing like they did with Gordon Hayward. But any thoughts on where we're at with a young center who I think has a ton of upside?
Look, man, he has every reason to feel like he's a $30, $40 million guy on the market, considering his ability to defend the rim and play within a system. He's a guy that they absolutely desperately need out there to be any sort of competitive on the defensive end. And for him, there might be, if Jonathan Kuminga is a $25 million guy, and he did show out in spurts in the playoffs last year and able to score 20 points. But in today's NBA, if you're potentially a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid. And if Nick Claxton's worth $25 million a year and Miles Turner's worth $25 million a year, absolutely he should be looking for anything north of 25. Jared Allen making $30 million a year. This is the market for Walker Kessler. And I think when you're looking at, can he get the max? No, I don't think he's going to get the max. I do think that when you're talking about his skill set and ability to defend, rebound, and for a team that is desperate for any sort of defensive help, anybody who can play a lick of defense, I feel like he's right to think that he's in $25, $30 million a year. That is approaching. I think 40 is too steep, but if you're in that 30, 35 a year range, I think he'd be thrilled to get that. I don't know if the Jazz are going to at all say right now that they're willing to commit to that number. That's at like the drop dead date, right? That's at the very end that you commit to something like that. Right now, I'm sure he's hearing it from the Utah Jazz that, hey, we think you're probably closer to a 15, 20 million a year, and then go get your number. But this is, I think, posturing, and like you said, I don't think it's a fracturing, but at this stage in the game, the Utah Jazz just have no incentive to walk into the office and say, yeah, we're willing to commit $30 million over 4 years to you, or $30 million a year over 4 years to you. That's just not how these negotiations work. And it's on the front office to get the best deal possible and make your team happy and put your team in the best position to succeed. Walker Kessler, at this point, I think it's too early to get any sort of read. They're going to be wanting somewhere in the $30 million range, I'm sure, just looking at the rest of the contracts around the league. And if I'm Utah, I'm absolutely trying to get them south of that figure without having it get too personal. But I think it's too early to say that they can't get to a deal or that they're way too far apart to have any reasonable expectation that they come to an agreement at the end of this. I suspect that he is going to get a disappointing offer only because the restricted free agency has been so bad for players lately. You look at Kuminga, Cam Thomas, these guys were expecting, Quentin Grimes were expecting huge deals, and they got a fraction of what they were expecting to get. And I'm afraid that Walker Kessler is trying to build any sort of leverage that he can, knowing that the marketplace for restricted free agency last year was dreadful. And hopefully for him, it doesn't end up where he's taking the qualifying offer, think about taking the qualifying offer, because that's how bad it was for those restricted free agents last year.
Yeah, he's really good. I would prefer to see him grow here, and if not, prefer to see them get some value, because I still maintain the way the Hayward stuff went down, how good he was before the injuries and all-star here. When they lost Gordon Hayward, all-star, wing in the NBA for nothing in exchange, like that was a massive step backwards, because, then they drafted Donovan and developed Gobert. If Gordon Hayward was on that team or like some sort of return in exchange for him, maybe we are talking about that generation of Jazz basketball a little differently, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. As you're talking about it, I'm like, man, that was a brutal loss to lose Gordon Hayward.
Yep.
And I don't think we're going to see that with Walker. I don't know. It's a different setup here with the Ainges running the front office. But that. Correct me if I'm wrong. That wasn't Walker Kessler wasn't an Ainge pick, right?
Correct.
Or was he?
No, it was part of the Gobert trade.
That's right. So it's not him, and so there is a little bit of he wasn't the guy that's selected in that deal for Walker Kessler to be a Utah Jazz member in that trade. So I guess if you're Walker Kessler, you're hoping for the best, but understanding that the marketplace was really rough and very team-friendly, not player-friendly last year.
Let me move over here because a couple of different times throughout our conversation we've talked about the defense for the Jazz. And, you know, the walking line about Will Hardy, and consistently, by the way, whether it's local or national, people seem to really think he is one of the bright young minds in NBA basketball. The Jazz have extended his contract twice. He's got a 6-year runway before he even has to worry about going to find a job. And I've been impressed when I've had a chance to interact with him, which has been limited, or listening to him speak. He seems to be an elite communicator, and his system offensively is very much like what Greg Popovich ran with the Spurs, obviously coached there, and what Steve Kerlach's run with the Warriors. It's, you know, a lot of spacing, a lot of free flowing, and a lot of players have benefited from it. But I'm just going to ask you straight up, because we've been debating about this for a couple of weeks. For the fourth straight year, the Jazz are going to be not just the worst defensive team in the NBA, but the worst defensive team in the NBA by a long shot, and by far the worst defensive team that's ever played basketball in Utah. So what's fair to say about a coach that everybody seems to love, but a team that does not guard a lick?
Yeah, I think it's the incentive structure in the NBA, and that might be a cop-out here, but the incentive structure in the NBA is in order to get top shelf talent like Cooper Flagg and AJ DeBenta of the world, you got to be bad. And so it incentivizes teams to just lay down defensively and then go get your buckets on the other end. You know, like, it stinks. I hate it. I think it's bad for the sport, the way that they incentivize losing in the NBA. But that's what I keep saying with Will Hardy and this organization is until they really go for it, I just can't read too much into the defensive rating, which, by the way, they're 2 points worse than the worst defense in the NBA. It's not just that they're like the worst team in the NBA on that end of the floor. They're so much worse than the Washington Wizards that it's laughable, right? The defense is laughable. And when you talk about the shots that they give up, they're bottom 5 in efficiency, effective field goal percentage allowed. They foul a ton defensively, and it just seems like they know what time it is. And Will Hardy, can he have a defensive mindset in this organization when the incentive structure is what it is? And I think it's true for just about any team. You look at the Pelicans, you look at the Nets, you look at the Sacramento Kings, the Washington Wizards. They're all god-awful defensively. And I think that's the issue, is that they're incentivized to be that bad and let the guys go get buckets on the other end. So that's just the way that the NBA has set things up. But if they get guys that are good defensive players, like let's say they go out and they get Davion Mitchell and Khalil Ware from the Miami Heat, and they're still this bad defensively, then I think we can have real conversations about Will Hardy's ability to have a defensive system that can win basketball games. But right now I look at this roster and I just don't see, like, who are the guys that we're expecting a lot better out of defensively without Walker Kessler out there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I tend to agree with the majority of your sentiment, but, like, there's no way, and you're right about the incentive structure, because for the fourth straight year, we're talking about this dumb draft pick that goes to OKC if it's not in the bottom 8. And the Jazz have recently manipulated lineups to lose games, even though they said they weren't going to, but they have to hold on to the asset. But would you go as far as to say, like, Will is intentionally kind of coaching this way in the name of making sure that they're in a good draft spot? I mean, can we go that far, Tom?
I just think if you're trying to tank, or if the organization is trying to play for ping pong balls, I think you're going to spend a lot of time at practice working on your offensive sets.
Yeah.
I think that's it, you know? It's just, look, we talk a lot about this with culture and how tanking can really have a poisonous impact on your locker room. It's hard to practice every day and instill concepts and be all about the right things when everyone knows what time it is, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know what you do if you're a head coach and the incentive structure says, hey, we got to lose as many games as possible to retain our pick, and then go in and be Tom Thibodeau defensively in practice and in shoot-arounds. I have a hard time believing that's where the priorities lie. So is he intentionally being terrible defensively in order to maximize his draft pick? I wouldn't say intentionally. I would say he's probably just spending a lot more time on offense.
Okay.
In the locker room, everyone in line, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I've kept you too long, but I do have one more for you because we're all out here with our fingers crossed. In the history of the NBA draft lottery, we have received zero luck. Never moved up. The only time the Jazz have moved up, they've traded up, like they did when they were able to grab Darren Williams. So BYU is about 40 miles from where we're at. Kansas is not. But on Saturday, we saw Darren Peterson and A.J. Debonsa go head-to-head. We have got a lot of good relationships down in Provo, and there's a lot to like about A.J., and I think they're both awesome. But if somehow, some way, the Jazz are finally rewarded with a little lottery luck, and we're sitting here on lottery night, and the Jazz are revealed as the team that has the number one pick in the NBA draft, and Danny Ainge called Tom Haberstroh and said, who should I pick and why? What would you say?
I just did this with Kevin O'Connor this week. So
Nice.
I was on the Kevin O'Connor show, and we were talking about Debonsa and Darren Peterson, and I'm way bigger fan of AJ than I am Darren Peterson.
Okay.
I think Darren Peterson to me profiles as a 2. I don't see the playmaking from a guy who's supposed to be, a combo guard, point guard, lead guard. He has a way lower assist rate than Debonsa, and he's a guy who's projected to be a lead guard in the league. I think it's under 2 assists every 36 minutes for Peterson. And so is he a bucket getter, kind of DeMar DeRozan type? Sure, great. But if you're A.J. Debonsa and you've got the full package, and you're more profiling as a kind of not a Luka, but just a big guard who can make plays for others, I'd much rather have that guy than someone who's a few inches shorter and isn't going to be able to get you a triple-double every night. I just feel like the ceiling for Debonsa is higher than Darren Peterson, but I understand why when you watch Darren Peterson shoot and the mechanics and the ability to get downhill, it's exciting. But I also watched that second half of that game and just being like, this feels off. That he's sitting on the bench when it's a real game and BYU is coming back, and I just was like, this doesn't feel right. And I know it's the incentive structure is that he wants to make sure he's healthy and doesn't get hurt out there. But he played 3 minutes in the second half after dominating in the first half. It didn't sit right with me, and I'm not making criticisms of his character, but I don't know, man. It rubbed me the wrong way, and I just felt like coming out of that game, I'm still a Debonsa fan. The reason why I'm laughing at the top is what I told KOC on his show is that I think Cam Boozer is the real deal. I think he's far and away the best prospect. And so if they were the number one pick and they knew that someone liked Boozer better, I would trade down and get a package and get Debonsa and get another huge prospect next to Debonsa. But I actually like Cam Boozer as a better prospect going forward. Debonsa's awesome. But, man, to get the local guy, and you already have the intel on him, and you have the relationships there in Utah, he might be the right guy. But in general, I like Boozer better as a prospect, but Debonsa's right next to him, number 2 on my list.
The plot thickens, and I don't know if you know this, and this is probably calculated. About a year and a half ago, Carlos Boozer was hired by the Jazz as a scout. So there's that as well.
Keep your third eye open, Spence. Yes.
Indeed.
I love this.
Hey, Tom, great stuff, man. I've missed you. Glad to have you back. Glad you're settled in the house. Have an excellent week, and we'll chat soon, okay?
You got it, man.
All right, great Tom Haberstroh. He writes for Yahoo Sports. He does some work with the Blazers. He's been with ESPN. He's been with NBC. He's been in the business for a long time. Consistent guest that has not joined us so far to talk NBA basketball, little college hoops as well. So good to have him on to revisit a bunch of different topics. That was some good stuff from Tom about the current state of the Utah Jazz. Get him on Twitter at Tom Haberstroh is where you find him. Post Malone and Jelly Roll lucky us, are taking over Rice Eccles Stadium on July the 28th. You can text to win a pair of tickets right now. 877-353-0700. Text in your favorite Jelly Roll song. I don't know. Your favorite Jelly Roll song. If you want to go see Post Malone and Jelly Roll, 877-353-0700. More details on our app and on ESPN700sports.com. All right, we'll catch a quick break. We'll do a little reset coming up on the other side, get you ready for the final 2 hours of the program that include Mike Morgan and Ben Solak to talk some college and pro football. Busy Monday show, and it's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. You get your screen report time at the end of every week when your iPhone's like, hey, this is how much time you spent on your phone.
Yeah, usually.
Are you comfortable sharing on air what your screen time is per week?
It's too high, but the caveat on that is that I usually literally set my phone up right here and leave it on during our show
Oh, okay.
as I'm texting guests and whatnot.
That doesn't count then.
So there's like an extra 4 hours on it every day.
Per day, yeah. Do you take that into consideration when you get your report? You're like, well, wait a second, I'm on my phone for work for 4 straight hours.
That kind of ruins it, so I don't necessarily do the math. But it's still, more than a couple hours on there, which I got to trim down.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we're in this space. You need to be kind of plugged in, and I don't love it. I try to, like, if I'm at home at night, if I'm watching a game or whatever, I try to, like, stay off of it entirely for at least a few hours a day, certainly in the morning when I'm trying to get work done. What is an appropriate amount of time? Let's say you do not have to have, and I'm not talking about you, okay? You do not have to have your phone on for 4 hours while you're working. When you get that weekly screen report, what number would make you feel good? What's an appropriate amount of time on your cell phone?
I would love if it didn't have an hour on it, right? Like
under an hour? Huh.
I mean, when I had a phone and just used it as a phone, there was no way I was scrolling through that thing for more than an hour a day. If I'm just reaching out to the people I need to, calling people here or there, 45 minutes max, I don't know. That'd be nice.
That would be nice, and certainly once upon a time when phones were only used for phones. I mean, the other thing is I return most of my email, and you know my relationship with email, it's borderline non-existent.
Right.
To the frustration of several people in this office. But if I do respond to I'm actually faster on my phone now than I am on my laptop.
That's fair.
I think most people these days probably utilize their phone for more work-related issues. I mean, again, in our business, it's different. Certainly, if you're on your phone for 4 hours every afternoon. I was thinking about this because lately, I think when the weather's colder and I'm not outside as much, my screen time goes up a little bit. Football season as well, because you're on the fantasy football stuff, you're checking whatever. Can you remember our little buddy Trey? If I asked you to guess Trey Fitzgerald's average screen time per day, what his weekly report says, if I asked you to guess, what would you say?
Good question.
And of course,
5.
No, the way I'm asking, no, dude, mine's about 4 or 5. And the weeks I get that are like 3 to 4, I'm like, okay, you're trimming a little bit. Trey's average screen time per week is 18 hours. 18 of the 24 hours, which means the only time he's not actively on his phone is when he is sleeping. That has to, like, literally every minute of every hour that good dude is awake, he is on his cell phone.
I guess when you are the PR professional of a professional soccer club, there's an asterisk there. However, that's a lot.
It's pathetic. It is wildly ridiculous. So yeah, this last week I was like 5.5 hours. I'm like, man, that feels high. And then I remember that Trey's 18 hours a day. Let me get your take before we break. I've not heard and Tom Haberstroh just joined us. That was really good. If you're a Jazz fan wondering kind of what's next or what's down the line. Tom is the first guest that I've had on the show to say that he would take Cam Boozer at 1 instead of AJ or Darren. Do you have a preference? Like, if we are finally sitting here with the Jazz getting lottery luck at number 1, it's obviously awesome that would be the case. It also means this is a generational chance to change the scope of your organization and, quite frankly, the basketball community. There would be a lot of pressure to get it right. Do you have a preference at the top of the board this year?
Am I the Jazz or am I just who gets number 1?
You are the Jazz.
So the way I look at, and I do think it is 3 prospects right now. I think it's A.J. DeBonta, Darren Peterson, and Cam Boozer. I think Cam Boozer is a guy that it really does depend on who gets the number 1 pick for him to slip in there. It's got to be a team that has a fit and a need for a little bit of a more traditional 4-5 guy, right?
Yeah.
The guy that's going to have his back to the basket, good rebounder, really good defender as well. He's got all those tools, but he is that kind of specific type of player. Whereas Darren Peterson and A.J. DeBonta, they have such a wide skill set and such a wide net, I think, is what they could be as a prospect that, you just look at him as a piece that you can kind of throw in multiple different places. I watched Darren Peterson a little bit more with intent over the last couple of weeks, and I would have a really difficult time passing on him regardless of where I sit in the draft. But if I'm the Jazz, I then look at A.J. DeBonsa, a guy who's been in Utah. You could maybe have conversations with him about staying in Utah, which is another piece of this. If you draft a guy at number 1, you don't want him to play for one contract and then leave. That plays into it. And, hey, I want to see these guys play through the tournament. I want to see what they're like in big moments, not just regular season at the college level, especially with two players who are, both 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see more in meaningful basketball, not regular season Big 12 hoops. Show me the conference titles. Show me the NCAA tournament, and then we can have a deeper chat. But right now, I think Darren Peterson is the surest thing in the NBA draft. He has just got such a great feel for the game, his vision, his playmaking ability, and you ask him to go get a bucket, and it's just automatic, right? He has that in addition to what is just a ridiculous feel of the flow of basketball, and that's something you can't really teach. With AJ, I think you look at his measurables, his intangibles, like he has more room to grow. He has more room to become a different level of player, and that's where I look at him and say, man, is this Jeremy Grant or Kevin Durant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I probably today go Darren Peterson, but I'm wavering on that even just during this answer.
Yeah, and you bring up some good points because, and look, this is a little bit, I kind of always chuckle when I hear NBA analysts say, well, the European guys are more willing to stay in smaller cities. I'm like, I think Nikola Jokic has been to New York and LA. Like, I think Luka Doncic, there's no guarantee, even though AJ's played his college ball in Provo, there's no guarantee that he's just going to want to stay here. In fact, there might be more of a like, hey, I wonder what else is out there deal. And the other thing is, as I talked to Tom about, the Jazz hired Carlos Boozer as a scout, and you have to wonder if that was intentional. I mean, hell, one of the New York Knicks assistant coaches, for people that don't know, is a guy named Rick Brunson, and his son is a guy named Jalen. So, look, I would applaud the Jazz for having the foresight to see if, Cam was really going to be the special hiring dad is more. Because I will take 12 to 14 years of Cameron Boozer or A.J. DeBonsa over 7 years of Darren Peterson. You do get a 7-year runway to try to convince these guys that this is where they want to live and play and grow. But it hasn't worked as of late. Whether you've drafted and developed Donovan or drafted and developed Gordon Hayward, the final piece of the puzzle is retention. It's the one piece of the puzzle they have not been able to figure out. And there will not be a guarantee from AJ or Cam that they're going to stay here for their career. But maybe it is more likely that they'll stay here because they have the experience instead of Darren Peterson. But I'm just hoping the Jazz finally get that lottery luck. And if they can add one of those 3 pieces to this young core, next year we got something. We got something to work with, but one step at a time. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We're going to catch up with Mike Morgan coming up on the other side, who is an announcer for ESPN and the SEC Network. We'll bounce around with a bunch of different things with Mike. He was in town to call the BYU Arizona game. I had a chance to go out with him and say hello. But he was with our old friend Travis Henderson, who was with the Jazz and now over to Amazon Prime. So I had a good time with Mike in town last weekend. We'll get to know him a little bit. New client on the show. Shout out to our friends at Wasatch Medical Spa. So it is a brand new technology that has never been brought to our market. So listen up. Clinically proven technology, which has been trusted in women's intimate wellness spaces for over a decade. And this company has now translated that and adapted the technology for men. So Wasatch Medical Spa is the first in Utah to offer what's called Apex RF, which is a non-surgical, drug-free treatment, meaning no pills, no injections, and no downtime. More than 95% of the men they've treated report noticeable improvements regardless of age. Almost every patient says they'd recommend Apex RF to others looking to improve performance and confidence. It's discreet, comfortable, and private. You're back to your day immediately. Your first visit is an easy 30-minute free consultation with no obligation. Book online at wasatchmedicalspa.com and experience the next level of men's performance. What they're saying is if you're lacking in the area of proficient performance in the bedroom, they can help you out. I'll translate that. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Mike Morgan, Ben Solak. That's your 4 o'clock hour. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, so we're going to catch up with Ben Solak today, who covers covers the NFL for ESPN. He's been joining us since he was a little blogger back in the day. Super Bowl 60 is coming up on Sunday in the Bay Area. The teams have ascended on the Bay Area, and now it's time to preview the game. But our next guest was in town not too long ago. Pleasure to meet and spend some time with Mike Morgan, who joins us on a Monday. What's up, Mike? How are you, man?
I'm doing well, Spence. Just going from one cold place to another. I didn't think when I left Utah that I would be headed to the southeast to call some more games, and it would be colder in the southeast than it is in Utah. But that's been the case for much of my travels here.
Oh, it's pretty wild. Today's 56 and sunny, so a lot of the folks that enjoy skiing around here are pretty upset, but an old guy like me that wants to swing a golf club is doing just fine, you know?
Yeah, I tell you what, we would kill for 56 because I've been in Auburn, Alabama, and Athens, Georgia since then, and there was actually snow on the ground in Georgia, which is rare, and the temperatures were in the teens, so it's pretty weird to go from the mountain time zone, particularly at a place like Utah, to down here in what's normally the very balmy southeast, but the good news is they play basketball indoors, so it's still been comfortable.
Fair enough. Hey, since this was your first experience, first of all, it was great to meet you, and it was a fun night. And I just wondered how you enjoyed your first Salt Lake City experience.
Man, I loved it. I loved everything about it. Salt Lake City has been a town that has been on my radar for a long, long time. And calling a game at BYU has been something that's been on kind of the bucket list. There's not many left for me in terms of arenas and football stadiums, but getting a chance to call a game at BYU, I was just shocked and amazed that like 18,000 people go there per game, and it's the presentation is NBA-like, and obviously the product now with what they put into that basketball program financially and with the players they've been able to acquire and the coach and everything else. There's a new buzz there that certainly hasn't existed in a while there, and I don't think that's going anywhere. But yeah, everything about it, from Salt Lake to Provo, is a lot of fun.
And I want, for our listeners, Mike called the BYU Arizona game, and look, you were there front row, and I've watched Arizona all year. I felt like that was a lot more about just how good Arizona is. They're, in my opinion, not just the best team in the country, but maybe only Michigan lives in their cul-de-sac. And, you know, BYU, the reports are they spent, $12 to $13 million on talent or whatever it is. And they're a good team, but they're 0 for 4 in quad one win opportunities after losing to Kansas on the road at Fog Allen. But let's hone in on the game you called. What stood out the most?
Well, I mean, like you said, number one, I really do think it was more about just how good Arizona is. I've had Duke, I've had Kansas, I've had everybody in the SEC, including the defending champion Florida Gators and Alabama and Arkansas. I have not seen a better team in person than Arkansas. Arizona. Got my A's mixed up. I just think top to bottom, that for me is the best team. Very often when I look at teams that can go far into March, I don't look for the team with the most strengths. I look for the team with the fewest weaknesses, and I don't see a weakness there. So they've got All-Americans and they've got first-round draft picks like a lot of teams do, but there's a lot of teams that still have a weakness. BYU is still a very good team, and A.J. Devonta's either going to be one or two. Pick your poison on that one. But he still has the ability to get much better. When I look at his outside shot, for me, not to play shot doctor, but as someone who played a bit of basketball, it's a little bit on the flat side. He's an uber athletic guy that loves to go downhill, but Arizona, realized that. And they basically, toward the end of that game, when Devonta was going to his most comfortable play, which is to do just that, go downhill, out-athlete the opponent, but Arizona is not very easy to just out-athlete. And that's where they drew a couple of offensive fouls. That's where they drew just some missed shots at the rim, which are very rare for a talented player like Devonta. And then they made BYU a little bit one-dimensional, I thought. And then on the defensive end, I didn't think BYU had an answer for Arizona, but don't feel bad. I don't know if anybody has had one. BYU is still an exceptional team, but, when you see them up against Arizona, when you see them up against Kansas that you just had a couple of days ago, you understand that while they're really, really good, there's a couple of teams out there that might be a little bit better.
Little concerned if I'm a BYU fan about their depth. And look, obviously AJ is their most talented player, but Rob Wright in a lot of ways makes them go. If Rob is in foul trouble or if he turns an ankle, I mean, maybe they just give the ball to AJ and say initiate the offense. But I like the top-end talent. I think Richie is an NBA player. But my concern with them, Mike, is just the depth. And at times, certainly against Arizona, they were overwhelmed in the paint with the size and athleticism, yeah?
Yeah, no doubt. And I asked their coach that exact question at shoot-around. Like, I love the fact that there are still teams that do play their guys 30 minutes a game, but it's very rare. And I asked him, I said, are you concerned about any fatigue? And he said point blank, yeah, a little bit. I mean, he said, I do think that can catch up to us, and we have to really be smarter about how we manage it in practice. So in other words, it almost takes on more of an NBA feel where some of the practices are going to be just, hey, get your shots up, as opposed to just running all kinds of grueling drills and scrimmages that can wear on you as much as the games, if not more than the games do. But they're not going to get deeper in the middle of the season, right? We know that. We know they had two guys lost for the year to injury, and that's not expected to change. So you kind of got to go with the hand you've been dealt here, and you are a 7-8 man rotation at best with your starters playing close to 30 minutes a game. A guy like Devonta, I mean, I asked him the same thing. You know, and he kind of, none of those players want to ever show weakness, but he admitted, you know, at times this time of the year, you're going to feel a little bit of that. But look, when you're in the NBA, as he's going to be less than 12 months from now, you're going to play back-to-backs. You're going to have weeks where you play 4 games. You're going to go on a East Coast-West trip or a West Coast road trip, depending on what city he winds up getting taken by. So you better get used to it, because a lack of conditioning, or, you know, I'm just too fatigued. I know we hear about load management and all that nonsense that has kind of permeated the game in some areas. When you're a kid that's that important and a team is going to invest that much into him, which is the number 1 or 2 pick in the draft, he's going to have to get used to playing a lot of minutes, and probably for, in all likelihood, a very bad team as well.
Referenced Michigan, who I think, of course, is really good, and Illinois is at 5, Nebraska at 9, Michigan State at 10, Purdue at 12. So the Big Ten, Mike, as you know, has 5 teams in the top 12 as of now. The Big 12 has 6 teams in the top 16. BYU falls to 16. We're the home of the Utes, and Utah plays their basketball about a mile and a half from where you and I are speaking. But this is year 1 of a long process for Alex Jensen, who I consider a friend and I hope has a lot of success, but they're in a really rough spot. It's not a very good team. But if I ask you point blank, and I know you call a lot of SEC games as well, and I think the SEC was probably the best conference in basketball a year ago, but who do you think the best conference is in college basketball this year, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to have a stronger opinion on that after this weekend, because I go back-to-back. I've got Wisconsin at Indiana on Saturday, and then I'll see the number 2 team in the country that you just mentioned, Michigan, at Ohio State on Sunday. And just watching Michigan on film, I mean, I think there's a handful of teams that are clearly above the pack. Arizona, we've talked about. Michigan, to me, is in that category. Duke is in that category. And if Florida plays the way they did on Sunday against Alabama, I would say they could be in that category. I think there's a little bit of a drop-off after that. Not a ton, but, yeah, the SEC is going to get about 10 bids, which is still awfully strong. The Big Ten is right there with them at 10, and the Big 12 is not far behind. I think the Big 12, it might be a little more top-heavy than in years past. Now, the top is really, really good. I love Kansas. I had them earlier this year against Iowa State. I love Texas Tech. There are really good teams in the Big 12, and even some like pleasant surprises, like a UCF just continues to upset people this season. The job that Tommy Amaker is doing there, that they haven't had much to celebrate in basketball in a while. Maybe this is a year they can sneak in the tournament and win a game or two, but I think if you, it all depends on how you look at it, Spence, because are we going to measure it from top down or bottom up? So in other words, okay, the two of the best teams in the country might be from one particular league, say the Big Ten, but the SEC might wind up with more bids, and vice versa. Like the Big 12, you take somebody like a Kansas, like a BYU, and maybe they don't have as many bids as the other two, but maybe when we're talking Final Four, those type of programs are standing at the end, whereas the SEC doesn't have a single team make the Final Four, which would not shock me. Like, I think the SEC has a lot of good teams. I'm not sure if they have an outstanding team. I think the one team that has a chance to be that is Florida, but they have to be more consistent. They can't lose a home game at Auburn like they just did. So it's a little bit different than last year, where I think come the bracket, everybody and their grandmother was picking Florida, right? It was chalk. This year, I think there's going to be a half a dozen teams, when you're filling out that bracket, that you can feel good about, that they have a legitimate chance at cutting down the nets.
One more basketball question. I got a couple of things I want to kick the tires with you as far as the football landscape goes, but obviously, as somebody who has called games and has seen A.J. DeBonza up close, Darren Peterson up close, and Cam Boozer up close, we're in this odd juxtaposition right now with our pro basketball team, who, due to the incentive structure of the NBA, continues to be unserious about competing night in and night out in the name of hoping that they finally get some lottery luck and maybe land in the top 3 or 4 and hopefully one overall. If you're the Utah Jazz, as somebody who's called games for all 3 of these pro prospects, what do you make of the type of pros they're going to be, and do you think one has excelled over the others?
Well, I know a lot of people are saying, and this is true, like, this is a really deep freshman class in college basketball that are going to be in the lottery. But, like, to me, if I compare Koa Pete to A.J. DeBonza, that's not a comparison. DeBonza is just a much better prospect. And Peterson, while I love Boozer, Boozer, to me, like, there's a guy like that in just about every draft class. I think Peterson can be generationally good. So I still think those top 2 picks, if I'm the Jazz, man, I am hoping, I am, praying to the gods, I'm throwing coins in a well, I'm, whatever your voodoo, witchcraft, or whatever it is it takes to get one of those top 2 picks, because I just think DeBonza and Peterson are a step ahead, and no knock on those other guys. Those other guys might all turn out to be terrific pros, but I just think those guys are in the draft every year. I'm in Atlanta, right? I mean, the Hawks finally get the number 1 pick. Risha Shea's not an awful player, but it was a horrible draft, and you can get a Risha Shea any draft at pick number 24. And that's how I feel about some of these guys that are going to be highly touted in a deep draft, and everybody's going to sell this as one of the deepest drafts ever, and that might be true. But to me, just one man's opinion, 1 and 2, Peterson, DeBonza, those guys are a cut above, and those guys you don't see those coming out of college every year. So if you got a chance to grab one, if you have the fortune of getting one of those top 2 picks, because I can almost guarantee you, first week of February, that is going to be 1 and 2. I don't see anybody that's going to jump either one of those guys. You really want to be in the top 2 if you're the Utah Jazz or any other NBA team.
Mike Morgan is with us. He calls football games, basketball games, ESPN SEC Network. He does NFL as well. He's a very busy guy, so I appreciate his time. I see on your profile, and by the way, you can find Mike on social media at Morgan On Air on Twitter, or at Morgan On Air 22 on Instagram. I see that you're a Heisman voter, Mike, so I wanted to ask you this question. Fernando Mendoza had his 2nd career start for Cal in college here in Salt Lake, and that was a really good Utah football team, and I was there at the game on the sidelines, and I remember watching him and thinking, like, man, he stinks. Like, he has no shot to be a college quarterback. Like, and now we're sitting here, he's your Heisman Trophy winner, they're the national champions, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I just wonder how you kind of digested this unbelievably fun storyline.
Well, it's an incredible storyline. Indiana, to me, is as good a story and as remarkable a story as we've had in college football in our lifetime. Because we see Cinderella in basketball. You know, we see a Butler make back-to-back Final Fours. We see a Baylor win a national championship. We see a George Mason make a final. Like, that's not that uncommon, especially in the day and age where older normally beats better in March. You know, if I've got a bunch of 24-year-olds going up against like an old Calipari stacked McDonald's All-American team of 19-year-olds, that's why Cal was out of a job at Kentucky, because that didn't work anymore. But in football, it's the same. We were on a path where if you weren't Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, then you weren't winning a national championship. You weren't even competing for it. And that has finally changed a bit, but Indiana is next level. This is not supposed to happen. You don't have 5 stars. You barely have 4 stars. You got 5 guys starting on your team that transferred in with their coach from JMU, James Madison. That shouldn't happen. And then part and parcel to all of that is Mendoza, a guy that was in walking distance to Miami. Miami didn't want him. Miami wouldn't even let him walk on. Then he goes to Cal. He wasn't like exceptional at Cal. If he was, everybody would have been just kind of slobbering all over themselves to get him in the portal. They were not. Indiana grabs him, and again, Cignetti's eye for talent is amazing because he turns out to be the most accurate quarterback really in college football. Like, there wasn't a throw he couldn't make. He is Brady-esque in that A, he's ridiculously accurate, B, he's a tremendous leader, and C, he doesn't move that well either. I mean, he moves, and it's ironic that the play of the game was a rushing touchdown by him, but really, he's going to be the number 1 pick solely based on his arm and his ability to read defenses. Look, just like we were talking about with the basketball players, I don't think he's generational. I've had some scouts tell me they don't even think he's a first-round talent. But I'm pulling for the kid. He's a great story. And the fact of the matter is, it's not a great quarterback draft. If you look at it, this is not one of the – next year is loaded from Arch Manning on down. This year, there's not a ton of quarterback talent. And so if you desperately need a quarterback like the Raiders do, they're going to take him number 1.
All right, Mike, before I set you loose, and I appreciate your time, you referenced Michigan football. Well, they have a new football coach, and his name is Kyle Whittingham, who coached here for 21 years, and it's as big of a sports story that we've had in our state in a long, long time. And honestly, with how big college football is now, maybe ever, Whit has become a national name in the course of a month in a way that he never was here for 21 years, and that's because he has the Michigan job now. Help us kind of understand here in Salt Lake City the magnitude of what this job entails and the type of pressure Kyle now has to deliver.
Well, it certainly is going to be at an all-time high for Kyle. And I've been you mentioned my Twitter account. If you go back, it seems like once a year I would tweet out, Kyle Whittingham, to me, is the most underrated coach in college football. I said that several times because I've always been a fan of what he was able to do at Utah. This job is not for everybody. And, of course, if you're the last coach and you're trying to, follow the footsteps of P. Diddy, then you're certainly going to get destroyed. But if you're also just a coach that actually – has a little bit on the ethics side, you could still get swallowed up by the pressure. I don't think that's what I worry about with Kyle Whittingham. I don't worry about him being swallowed up by the pressure, meeting the moment, all that stuff, not a problem. What I'm concerned about with him, remember, before Jim Harbaugh won a national title, he lost a lot of disappointing games. He couldn't beat Ohio State. He would always lose a disappointing game in the regular season. And there are a lot of people that wanted him fired year 3, year 4, year 5 in Ann Arbor until he got the players. And Kyle Whittingham in the portal is going to need to strike gold and strike gold quickly in Ann Arbor. They kept the 5-star quarterback. I did a Michigan game this year. That offense was so pedestrian. I don't think it was the quarterback's fault. They just ran a really dry and vanilla offense. I think that changes, and I think he needs to bring some credibility back to the table, because even if Sharon Moore was not acting astray, he was a guy that really didn't have the credentials for that kind of job. Kyle Whittingham does. Kyle Whittingham walks into that locker room and commands it and says, look at my resume. Kind of like Cignetti said, Google me. You could Google Kyle Whittingham, and the players realize we got a dude here, and we need to go ahead and fall in line and do what it takes to win. So, look, I don't know how long he's going to be there. The age is a little bit concerning, but then again, that's what they said about Cignetti. He's 64 and just won a natty. So I wish him well. I hope that he gets the right players because you got to have dudes. You got to have Jimmys and Joes. And if he does, I trust in Whittingham in terms of X's and O's, leading a program. He's got the right coordinators behind him. Then I think good success will follow.
Mike, good stuff, man. It was really fun meeting you and spending a little time last weekend. Appreciate your time today. Safe travels. Would love to do it again, okay?
Yeah, Spence, hopefully one day soon I'll do a Utah Jazz game. If not, I would love to do a Utah Utes college football game. And me, you, we'll get Henderson out there. We'll hit the town again, have a good time. Great meeting you as well.
Love it, my friend. Mike Morgan does a lot of things. He's a busy guy, and he's very good at his job. Football, basketball, baseball on ESPN and the SEC Network. NFL and college football for the Elite Media Network. He's a Heisman voter, was in town to call the BYU-Arizona game, and it was his first time here in Salt Lake. So it was fun to go out with him for a little bit, kind of hang out. We had a good time. We will catch a break, and coming up on the other side, we will preview Super Bowl 60 and talk some NFL with one of our favorites. He is Ben Solak, joins the program coming up right here on ESPN 700. All right, days away from Super Bowl 60. The teams have descended upon the Bay Area, which is where the game, of course, will be played in Santa Clara. Always enjoy our next guest. I'm sure he's a busy boy this week. Ben Solak from ESPN. Hello, young man. How are you?
I'm well, Spence. How you doing?
I'm well. Are you there? Have you arrived in the Bay Area?
Yes, I'm walking the streets of San Francisco right now, enjoying what is extremely warm and sunny winter. I don't like it. It feels odd.
Yeah, it's 56 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake, dude. Nothing makes sense at this point.
Terrible shame. I like snow and I like the dark. Give me seasons.
There you go. All right, let's attack this one at a time. As you know, coming on this show for 6 years now, you're talking to a New York Jets fan. So I am anybody but the Patriots, but I cannot help myself but just be taken back after winning 4 games a year ago. They're back in the Super Bowl. How'd they do this, Ben?
I mean, they hit every single free agency, which is just like not something that you ever see happen, right? Usually we see a team be the leading spender in free agency and we say, listen, this is no good, guys. Like, this is going to be a bad group. You know, the expectations are going to be too high. What happened instead? They spent $360 million in free agency, hit every single signing. Milton Williams, defensive tackle, Robert Swain, linebacker, Carlton Davis, cornerback, Harris Tonga, defensive tackle. We can just keep going and going. Steph Diggs, a wide receiver. 2 of their starting offensive linemen, Garrett Bradbury, Morgan Moses, both free agent deals. So if you want to see the way that one guy can impact the whole organization, both in terms of personnel acquisition and then also in terms of how those guys get played on the field, it's Mike Vrabel in this offseason the Patriots have had. The 1-year roster turnover is just something we never really see in the NFL level. It's very impressive.
On the other side, we saw signs a year ago, even though they didn't make the playoffs, that Seattle had a little something. But how'd they get here? How are they back in the Super Bowl as well?
Yeah, the defense took, I think, a really big leap. Year 1, Mike McDonald, year 2 to Mike McDonald, which makes sense. It's a really complex defense. It requires pretty specific guys in terms of the roles that you want to fill and the body types that you need. It's a lot of calls on the field, and so I think that the defense is always going to be a little bit of an incubator. And then on the offensive side of the ball is exactly the opposite, right? McDonald hires an OC for his first year as head coach, Ryan Grubb, out of college, new, fresh ideas. And he's willing and has the humility to admit right away, man, this is not working. This is not going to work. I'm going to go make a change. I'm going to hire Clint Kubiak, an NFL lifer, who can kind of just plug and chug in a Shanahan system that we know the floor and we know the ceiling. And if we're lucky, we're going to get that ceiling. And that's exactly what happened, right? They got the best version of Sam Darnold. They got an unbelievable version of Jackson Smith-Njigba, right? They really kind of hit on all reds there, right? Like hit all sevens, right? It was a bit of a lucky draw, but still, it was a long-term build on the defense, and then that plug-and-chug Shanahan system and offense hitting at the same time. That's what gets it done.
All right, let's dig into the game a little bit. And ultimately, I've been a little bit surprised that this line hasn't moved at all. Seattle continues to be a 4.5-point favorite. The over-under has stayed pretty steady as well. Before I ask you who you think is going to win, let's attack it this way. I'll ask the question like this. The Patriots win Super Bowl 60, Ben, if what?
If Milton Williams and Christian Barmore just go hog wild. I mean, just the game of your life, the game you've never seen before. The one thing that can really tip this field, that can just shake up the whole board, is the fact that the Patriots have probably the best pass rushing defensive tackle duo in football. Milton Williams, their free agent signing from the Eagles last year, and then Christian Barmore, who was a really great ascending young player who missed most of the 2024 season with blood clots. So this unit, it kind of came together really fast. But man, it's dominant. You have that group, and then you have the Seahawks offensive line, in which the weakness is guard, center, guard, right? Anthony Bradford, especially at the right guard spot. Now, we know Sam Darnold, like you're a Jets fan, you watch the guy, all the physical talent in the world, but man, he will spiral, he will unspool very quickly when he gets pressured. And so the one thing for the Patriots in this game, the big red letters at the top of the board, we're going to hit this dude. We're going to hit him in the first quarter. We're going to get after him. We are going to send blitzes. We're going to send pressure. And we're going to try to elicit the worst of Sam Darnold and then let the dominoes fall from there.
Before we get to the other side, let me just ask you, since you brought Sam up, and look, he really was the one quarterback, and is the one quarterback that my dumb football team has drafted over the past 15 years, where I thought we had something. Back in the old Pac-12 days, as we're here in Salt Lake, we saw Sam play a lot, and I liked him as a prospect. It didn't work out in New York. A lot of that probably isn't his fault because of the anemic New York Jets, but what is the Ben Solak like? What's your favorite part of this redemption arc, this unbelievable story where Sam has become, and I still can't believe this, the first quarterback in USC history to start a Super Bowl? What do you make of this?
that's the part that always gets me.
Yeah.
The thing that really impresses me about Sam, and you've heard other people talk about this, is kind of his demeanor after these games. And, you know, he's not much one to be like, oh, I was doubted by 19 teams, and I have a list of 45 guys who didn't believe in me. Like, that's not his disposition, which I think when a lot of media members talk about how nice that is, they do it from the perspective of, oh, like, you know, look at this very nice, friendly man, and, you know, what a nice leader, and so on and so forth. My main takeaway from it is I think that Sam's really better than a lot of these guys who have these mid-career recoveries. Sam really understands how thin the line is between, like, disaster and success, and so he's just not going to get too high on it or too low on it, right? Like, I think Sam knows, man, like, I was 2 or 3 good breaks, like, you know, maybe a little bit better of an offensive coordinator, maybe a little bit healthier, 2 or 3 good breaks in New York from playing like this, and here I am in Seattle, and, like, I'm playing great. I love that I'm playing Logan Kubiak. If JSN goes down, like, I know, you know, things fall apart really fast in the NFL. So I think he's got, better than a lot of players typically do, a really good understanding that, man, like, it is a razor's edge between the best ball you've ever played and the worst ball you've ever played. So he's not going to get too high and too low. He's not going to get too much of a, you know, kind of overinflated ownership over his own success. It just kind of is what it is. He's going to line up and play the next down.
All right, now let's get back to kind of what I was going for earlier. Seattle wins Super Bowl 60 if what, Ben?
They avoid turnovers. I think that's really the big one. If you go and you look, Seahawks offense is odd. Second highest turnover per drive rate in all of football. Only the Vikings turned the ball over on a greater percentage of their drives than the Seahawks did. You just don't notice it because the defense is so elite that they get away with it. And they get all these stops even when they're giving up short fields. The Seahawks only gave up 29 touchdown drives in the regular season. The average starting field position on those drives was the 41-yard line. Like, if you just let this defense get 80 yards to work with, if you just maintain field position and play a controlled game, they don't give up points, man. They're just too good down to down. So the way you lose this game is by giving the Patriots those explosives, by giving the Patriots those short fields, allows them to get points on the board fast to kind of break this thing open into more of a race, which is not the game the Seahawks want to play. So it should be a very cautious game plan. It should be a run-oriented game plan, quick throws, avoid that pressure I was talking about from the defensive tackles, and critically, maintain the field position battle. Make this a regular game in which you're the more mature, veteran, and just generally talented team. You should come out on top when the chips go down.
And now, what do you think will happen coming up on Sunday? How do you think this thing plays out?
Do you think the Seahawks will win? I certainly think it's going to be closer than a lot of people are giving it credit for, man. Like, we talked about Drake May, and we talked about this Patriots offense as if it was quite good. Oh, you know, like solid offensive performance. Man, this team was number 1 in dropback success rate, number 1 in EPA per play. This was the best passing game in football. There's schedule concerns, absolutely there are. But in general, this was it, man. Like, this is the unit that's supposed to make the postseason. They're going to get explosives on Seattle. They're going to move the ball a little bit. It will happen. And I do think they have enough pressure to get 1 or 2 turnovers off of Sam. So I would not be surprised if the Patriots lead this thing at halftime. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close the whole way down. Seattle is the more talented team, just pole to pole, just 1 to 53, special teams, you know, second linebacker. Like, there's so many dudes. So they probably win it over 4 quarters. But I tell you, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be grimy. I think we're going to be in a good 4th quarter.
Reports are both quarterbacks are dealing with a little something with the oblique stuff with Darnold, and then Drake May shoulder injury and potentially an illness as well. Any of that concern you? I mean, they get the extra week, obviously, and Sam apparently had an oblique against the Rams and looked, you know, okay. But any concerns about either quarterback at this point?
I mean, both these boys have been sort of spinning the ball since they were 11, thinking about this game. You could amputate a leg, and when they would run out of that tunnel for the Super Bowl, that leg would reattach, baby. Like, they're not going to feel nothing. You know, like, it's February football, right? I mean, you play with 8 fingers. It doesn't matter. And so you're confident of both things. Again, you talk about what are these defenses planning. They're planning on hitting Sam, and then that Patriots defense, that Seahawks defense, absolutely. We're going to hit Drake. We're going to try to hit him on the shoulder. Like, you know, you know these things. You read these things. But in general, you know, I don't think either one of these lingering injuries is significant enough to really move the needle on how I feel about either team.
So, I was talking about this a little bit earlier. University of Utah made a Rose Bowl, played against Ohio State. They had a wide receiver named Jackson Smith and Jigba.
What a game it was.
My goodness. And, you know, you're watching it, you're going, okay, that kid's got a little juice. He might be a good NFL wide receiver. But I am seriously impressed and stunned about his growth. And I know Christian Gonzalez is awesome. I don't know that you can just go one-on-one here. And how does New England limit what right now feels like among the most unstoppable weapons in pro football?
Yeah, you have to throw a lot of stuff at him. So you're right. Like, Gonzalez is on the list of corners. It's quite a short list. That's when you feel pretty good. Okay, he's going to line up against Smith and Jigba. He's going to press him, and we'll do the best we can. But that's we can survive, not a we can thrive sort of a thing. You've seen the Patriots allow Gonzalez to travel with some star receivers this year. He did it against T. Higgins and the Bengals. He did it against Emeka Egbuka and the Buccaneers. I would expect he does it again. But remember, when a guy travels, it's not every single snap. It's like for third downs. It's situational calls. They have a good corner, too, in Carlton Davis. And critically, Davis is the sort of body type that Smith and Jigba can struggle with. Smith and Jigba is not like length pressing him at the line of scrimmage. And Carlton Davis is a puncher. He will get up in your grill with physicality. So I think you're going to see Davis get some reps there as well. They're going to get his safety on top of him a lot. The real challenge is going to be when the Seahawks start putting him in motion and he gets into the slot. And that's where he has a two-way go and he has that free release. And that's where he's at his most dangerous. And so I think on the third downs where they have to line up and drop back in the gun and they have to move Smith and Jigba out there wide, you're going to see him press and they're going to cloud the safety over him. But it's those 1st and 10s and those 2nd and 8s, those play action downs where Smith and Jigba's running from left to right before the snap and then they snap with him in motion. Those are the ones that it's tough to scheme up, and I think that's where Smith and Jigba's going to get them.
So Puka Nacua played his high school and college ball here in state, so we all kind of cheer for him. And also a player that I thought was going to be a good pro, but not a player I thought was going to be not just maybe the best wide receiver in the league, but one of the best football players overall. If I asked you, Ben Solak, better football player, Puka Nacua or Jackson Smith and Jigba, what would you say and why?
Nacua. And the simple reality is the blocking aspect of it. Like when you say football player, what Nacua gives the Rams in terms of a wide receiver who can play tight end and who can go dig out a linebacker in the running game is unparalleled. There is nobody in the league like it. And like back in the day when the Rams were doing this with Robert Woods, it wasn't to the same degree, right? Like it wasn't like this. Nakua's physicality is just unanswerable, right? Smith and Jigba's had quiet games this year where you can a little bit body him out of the game just with a sheer number of dudes and with length on the side. You can never do it to Nacua because they'll just throw him the ball. They'll give him the ball behind line scrimmage. They give him on a jet sweep, he'll break 3 tackles. Like there's a size aspect of this that's kind of inarguable, right? You can't avoid it. So to me, Nacua, but yeah, I mean, we're splitting the finest and the most excellent of hairs here. So if instead I opened my mystery box and I got Jackson Smith and Jigba for Christmas, I wouldn't be too upset.
Sure. I'm just asking out of curiosity. We already talked about the quarterbacks. It feels like these teams are mostly healthy. Is that fair? Any notable injuries?
Yeah, so Elijah Arroyo, who's the second tight end for the Seahawks, is potentially back for this game, which is a big deal. They like to run multiple tight end sets, and they moved away from it a little bit once Arroyo got hurt. We don't yet know if he's available for it or not. He was activated off IR. So he's a name to watch as we go through the course of the season here. And then the other one is Charles Cross, who's the Seahawks left tackle, who played in the NFC Championship game and looked great, but has been dealing with a knee and has been missing practice pretty much for the last few weeks now. And so you never know. You get to week 23 here in the NFL season. Everybody's playing with a little bit of something, and so you don't know what that feeling is or that pain management is going to be like. If he takes a bad hit and he falls down in the first quarter, man, we're on to the backup. Like it can be that fragile. And so Arroyo is the name to watch in terms of availability. Cross is the guy that I'm most interested in seeing what the legs look like here in the final game of the season.
Before I say you lose, away from the Super Bowl, a couple of questions for you about the coaching carousel. And look, whenever you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, and as an organization, you have to maximize the time you have him under center. And I was a little bit surprised they moved on from McDermott, but I get it because that's just kind of how the game works. Are you surprised they just elevated Joe Brady to the head coach of the Bills?
Yeah, I would have told you once they moved on from McDermott. Okay, well, the one thing they're certainly not doing is just elevating Joe Brady, right? Because that would be kind of silly relative to your complaints about McDermott. We need new blood. We need a new excitement. We need, a new belief that we have a different philosophy that's going to get us over the playoff odds. And that obviously doesn't happen when you're just promoting the offensive coordinator. I also think there were, schematic issues with the offense that Brady really struggled to solve. And the current, message out of that building is, a lot of that was Sean McDermott's influence on the offense. I don't believe that when I see it. I'm sure they'll come up with some new stuff, some different stuff, but it's your ability to solve stuff year over year and in the middle of seasons that I think is really, really important. And so I, in a vacuum, like Brady as a coach, think he's got good stuff, want him to get a head coaching opportunity, and I'm happy that he has it. the expectations in Buffalo are staggering, right? He could make the divisional round in his first year as a head coach, first time ever as a head coach at the NFL level, and it'd be considered a failure. That's such a high bar to deal with. You have to run perfect to even get there. What if somebody gets hurt? You're just 7-10. The entire fan base hates you. You know, it's a tough situation there in Buffalo. I don't know. I don't think this was the right move, but I don't know what I would have told them the right move was if they'd asked me. You know, I mean, they're in a real difficult spot.
Favorite hire, Ben Solak, favorite hire that occurred out of all 10. Which one would you say and why?
Not sexy, but John Harbaugh. I mean, it is. You know, that's exactly what the Giants needed. We ran the carousel from Brian Dable and Joe Judge and Pat Shermer and all, you know, Belichick disciples and culture guys, this and whatever. It was time to just get an adult in the room and get to 10-7, right? And if we get stuck at 10-7 and we need to solve the problem later and get over the hump, we'll get over the hump. But let's first get back to some semblance of professional football here. That defense has been underperforming for years relative to the talent. This isn't even like a Joe Shane defense. They've had good graphics, good guys, and they have not a good scheming in there. And like Harbaugh's going to get the right coaches for the right players. He's done that consistently over his time in Baltimore. Jackson Dart, I think, is going to benefit from Harbaugh, who's a very professional and experienced voice in the room saying, hey, listen, you want to have a 10-year career in the NFL? You want to make $100 million? Buddy, protect your head. Like, you know, I've been around. I know these sorts of things. Like, this is how the league is going to view you. So Harbaugh is, I think, a great relief to the Giants. And even if it doesn't end with, you know, NFC championships, NFC East titles, and all the hardware you might want, I do think he's going to bring them back to a semblance of pro football. It's going to be nice to see.
Last thing, the hire that is, and maybe it's Brady, but the hire that has left you most scratching your head going, what exactly are we doing here?
That's Mike LaFleur with the Cardinals, which is a shame. Actually, no, it's Mike McCarthy with the Steelers. What are we doing, man? Like, come on. How are we firing Mike Tomlin to go get a guy who had Mike Tomlin's problems 15 years ago? Like, we're moving backwards in time. The staff also, like, I was willing to give McCarthy a little bit of run. He just filling out the staff with guys he knows. Man, like, this is old head coach 101, where it's just I have my exact same Rolodex, an analog little flip on my desk that I've been keeping since 2006. I'm going to go call my buddies up and say, hey, baby, one more ride. Let's go 11-6 and lose in the wild card round. Like, he does not interest me like the Giants. I like it. For a team like the Steelers, who you've been doing this year over year, and the whole point is you want something different, I am profoundly disappointed that this is the direction the Steelers went. Now, who knows, maybe the team will implode and they'll finally get those early draft picks. They need to actually change things around a little bit. But Steelers for me and Mike McCarthy, man, I mean, I almost forgot it happened. It pissed me off so much, so I'm glad you reminded me of it.
Who do my Jets take it to, Ben?
Oh, buddy, I have watched the top 30, 40 players, and this is just the worst draft I've too. I'll tell you that. If it were me, I'd be taking Reuben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami. I do think that it's him or Caleb Downs, and I feel comfortable enough with Bain. A little bit of a weird body type, a little bit of a tricky role, but in general, just a football player, a disruptor. Like, I know Jets fans have heard similar things with players before, but, like, this guy, to me, actually, like, has the credentials against top competition that we can say it with comfort. Downs would also be an excellent pick. You're just drafting a safety at 2. So the expectation is Sean Taylor, Eric Berry, the only other 2 safeties to go top 5 this century. So again, talk about really high bars on a guy. But those to me are the 2 top players. You're not going to get anybody to trade for that pick. I'll tell you right now. There's no quarterback who's going to go to that anybody's excited about. And the other premium positions like wide receiver, corner, nobody's like that level of a prospect yet. So you better fall in love with somebody, baby, because you're staying there and you're picking.
Oh, dear. All right, man. Thanks for the time. Enjoy the week. Should be fun. We'll chat soon. Thanks, Ben. All right, Ben Solak.
Has been transcribed. One moment.
What was that?
Ben must have an AI assistant or something.
Oh, well, you never know these days. Ben has been coming on our show for, well, we're in our 7th year. Yeah, he was an early guest of ours. Where did he start again? He was like a blogger.
He was working with our friends Trevor Sikkema and the folks at the Draft Network.
That's right.
He then did some stuff with The Ringer, I do believe, Spotify stuff, and now Big Dog, flagship.
Would imagine you echo his sentiment about the new Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, yes?
To go from Mike Tomlin to Mike McCarthy is hilarious, genuinely.
Yeah.
Like, to me, one of the most consistent, just business-like coaches in the business, to a guy who will literally, if it's a close game and you are down to a situation where the clock is an issue, he will lose you the football game. Now, I think Mike McCarthy is like a player personnel guy, a talent evaluator, is pretty good. I like some of the rosters he built. He just can't control a football team or make decisions in game. So, not a fan.
Seems to be problematic if you're, coaching football.
Yeah. Hire him as my, again, scout, GM, player personnel guy. I love what he does there. That's really it when it comes to McCarthy.
We are making history on this radio show. For the first time, we're giving away tickets to a band I actually listen to. Black Crowes and Whiskey Myers taking over the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August the 13th. Tune in to OC Show, at noon for your chance to win a pair of tickets. More details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program is next, right here on ESPN 700. I discovered something today. It's interesting with these betting apps and, prediction markets and such, and the ability to, do what you will if you decide that that's how you want to spend your money. My advice to my listeners remains the same. Do not gamble. Do not bet on sports. You work too hard for your money. You work too hard, keep it in your bank account, keep it in your pocket. There is a app that I will leave off air that allows you to do the daily stuff where you pick, 3, 4, or 5 different players to hit projections or whatever. And the rumor was, if you actually, and this is prior to the start of the game, if you, make a combination of picks that the app indicates whatever the algorithm or their experts believe that you actually nailed it, they will set a very low limit on what you can actually bet on. So instead of picking 4 or 5, if you do a bunch of research, and look, the people that actually make money on sports gambling, they win about 52, 53% of their bets while doing hours and hours of research. There's a way to do this, but it's almost like a full-time job. And there are several places you can go to get the picks of experts. And so I tested this. There was this rumor that this guy was turning all this money into daily, all these picks into a bunch of money on daily fantasy. And they said if you go look at his picks and then try to put it on the app, they'll put a limit of $5 on what you could bet. So, like, the odds are if you pick, like if you do like a 6 play, usually you'll get like 30 to 35 times your return. So you spend $50, you get like $2,000 or whatever. And it's true. I just plugged it in this app. They wouldn't let me bet more than $5. This is shady business, dude.
Algorithms will not let you in. This is the reason I've never, if you go to like Vegas and there's the slot machines that you used to see that like spin the dot, like an actual wheel, and you can see it going.
Yeah.
And then they transitioned into these like just computers that have these crazy screens. Never touched one of those because who knows who is programming that code, that computer. And I'm sure gambling, the house always wins for a reason. These apps and such, if you're really good at it, they're probably going to at some point find your account, and you're not going to get those $5 bonus offers, those, here's a max profit boost on this pick, on this one. They know how to make money, and they know how to make sure you're not swindling them in some form or fashion.
So be careful out there, kids, is what I'm saying. More than $1.8 billion is expected to be bet on Super Bowl 60 between Seattle and New England. All right, today is Groundhog's Day, and I always lose track, like what happens if the little fella sees the shadow, what happens if he doesn't. Apparently he saw the shadow. I don't know how they analyze that, which means 6 more weeks of winter. Now, if you live in Utah, you basically live in Northern California now. So that means that we have 6 more weeks of 55 degrees and sunny weather. But Porter Larson, our ESPN stats and info department entirely, has come up with a Punxsutawney Phil stat, apparently. Let's hear it.
Yeah, based on Punxsutawney Phil and his ancestors, this is going back way further than a groundhog's lifespan, right? He has, and here's the thing, he has 2 choices. This is a multiple choice question with 2 answers. So you already got a 50% chance of getting the right one. Punxsutawney and his ancestors are 38% when it comes to like analyzing whether they are accurate or not on the weather. Now, you can get a better weather readout on the drive, I believe.
Yes, you can, because Porter, among other things, is also an NBA expert. All right, the Utah Mammoth are in action tonight. They're taking on Vancouver, 7:30 Mountain Time on ESPN+. The Jazz are off tonight. They're back in action tomorrow against the Pacers. They've lost 6 straight in 9 of their last 10 because they are unserious. Utah women, they lost to BYU over the weekend. They're back in action against UCF on Wednesday. BYU hoops on the road against OK State. The Utah men will welcome in Arizona coming up on Wednesday. We should shout out Jared Calhoun and the Utah State Aggies, who had a big-time comeback win over San Diego State and also beat Wyoming over the weekend. They are in first place in the Mountain West because, of course, they are. A few days away from the NBA trade deadline. So we've got a lot to do. We'll have a busy week, busy shows all week long. Porter, before we get out of here, what comes our way on a Tuesday edition of the program?
On a Tuesday edition of The Drive, our guy Freddie Coleman, he's got a different schedule tomorrow, which is a rarity. So we're actually going to get him while he's usually on air during our show. Former Ute and NFL player Chase Hansen will stop by the program. We'll get our friend Zach Harper for the NBA Daily Assist, and then one more guest still in the works. Probably some NFL action, maybe some Utes with Bill Riley. Maybe we'll call our guy Trey. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's scraping the bottom of the barrel. Although RSL, I guess, signed a player, and then they didn't, then they signed it. Nothing's official from the club. I'm just seeing rumors online.
They've made signings.
They have. I guess there's like a left back from Uruguay or something that people are freaking out about. I don't know, dude. I'm busy. We'll get to the soccer stuff when they start.
There you go.
So, yeah, join us. Now, one thing we did learn is that as a result of Trey literally being on his phone for 18 hours a day, that if you text him and he doesn't text you back, he's choosing to ignore you.
That's good to know at least. He always gets back to me, though.
All right. Well, I'm glad it gets back to somebody. We'll say goodnight. Little NBA hoops tonight. If you're looking for something to watch, there's some decent NBA games. Who has the coverage? Oh, it's Peacock. T-Wolves, Grizzlies, and then 76ers and Clippers. So there you go. All right, special thank you today to Lindsey Rhodes, as well as Tom Haberstroh, Mike Morgan, and Ben Solak for the sound you missed from the show today. You can always head over to the website. It's ESPN. Oh, one more thing before we go. John Absby passed away over the weekend. John was best known to be the Jazz Bear for, let's see, I think it was 24 years, something like that. He started in 1994, and was let go. I'll leave my opinions about that off air. The guy who did that, not a huge fan of, and he lost his job, so whatever. But John was just the sweetest guy, and you knew him as the Jazz Bear, 1994 to 2018. So 24 years. Yeah, you knew him as the Jazz Bear, but he was a tremendous pillar in our community. I worked for the Jazz for 7 years when John was there, so we went on several vacations together, and he was just the sweetest man. And I was very sad to learn over the weekend of his passing after a year-plus-long battle with pancreatic cancer. So shout out to his family today. We're thinking of you. We're so sorry for your loss. Just wanted to mention and send a little love to the Absby family after John passed away over the weekend. All right. Special thank you, Lindsey Rhodes, Tom Haberstroh, Mike Morgan, and Ben Solak. You missed any of it, website, ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. And then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out our podcast page and subscribe, rate, review. Say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. Reporter, I'm Spence saying good night. Have a great Monday evening. The Alex Jensen Coaches Show coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700.